Vitaly just got arrested in the Philippines. We're going to be talking about that. We're also going to put several locked up abroad clips at the end of this video. You want to start and kind of talk about who he is?
So this dude, Vitaly, is one of the OG pranksters on the internet. So he was one of the first dudes who blew up and actually made a career and actually eventually millions of dollars from pranking people on the internet, making videos about it. And in fact, like,
how long ago was this?
A decade ago, 15 years to a decade ago. And then to the point where all his pranks are classics, and like so many people, so many YouTubers and streamers, they just copy it. So there's like thousands of copies from his original ideas. So he's like super OG when it comes to pranks, you know, on the internet. And apparently he's been getting in a lot of trouble. So last year he was on trial for beating someone up, a woman in Miami. So eventually he gets out, and this year, so he's just trying to revive his career pretty much. That's what's going on. And there's been a trend lately of these, they call them nuisance streamers now, where the most famous guy right now is called Johnny Somali, right? And he's an American, and he goes to Asian countries and acts like a complete idiot, try to pick fights just to get attention and clicks, and eventually gets monetized and he makes money off of it. And he's been going around all these Asian countries, and right now he's finally been arrested in Korea, and he's facing serious charges out there. I'm talking about Johnny Somali. And then, so he's getting a lot of attention doing that. So I guess this guy, Vitaly, he just gets out of trial or whatever, and he needs to revive his career. So why not just make the biggest splash possible, right? But what I think he made his biggest mistake is he did not know the Philippines, and he decided to do it there. Because pretty much I don't know what your experience with Filipinos is, Matt, but the way Filipinos are is just, they're just jovial. They're just really nice people. So I think he thought that he would be able to get away with a lot of stuff because of the way Filipinos are. But the thing about Filipinos is that it's not really known, is that they're nice, but if you cross a certain line, they gang up on you. Because I don't know if you know the history of the Philippines. It's been colonized by Spain, USA, and Japan. So there's a lot of like pent up, like, I would say, willingness to defend, you know, pride. And what's happening with Vitaly? So he did try to copy these nuisance streamers, and like I said, he did it in the wrong country, where it's just gonna make any other prison, and not just the prison, the actual sentences, like, they don't mess around there. It's just not known. So he just didn't know this, I guess, going into it, but it's brutal. He's in for what I would consider hell on earth.
So it's president of the Philippines. Did you see this video? It's like it was like 6 hours ago, where he said he's doing 5 or 10 years.
He didn't say a time, but he's definitely, because right now it's election season in the Philippines. So what's going to happen is all these politicians that are running are going to use this guy for their campaigns. So he's going to get, it's not looking good for him at all, because, like I said, the elections and these politicians, these are some of the worst politicians you'll ever, like, dirty politicians. So they're willing to do anything. And if they have to drag this dude's name through the mud, so be it. And that's what's going to happen. And since the president already made a comment about it, they're for sure going to drop the hammer on this guy.
I have a friend that is currently in the Thailand, and he talks about how, he's walking the streets and he's like, there's no garbage on the street. There's no trash on the street. And he says like everybody's super, super nice. And he was talking about how they're extremely respectful, and they have, that a big thing for them is respect, and like their word is like really, like if they say they're going to do something, they do. You know what I'm saying? He was basically saying like that respect is a big, big thing there. They don't, it's kind of like you go to Japan and you get on the subway and there's a police, there's like a monitor there that like you don't eat your cell phone, you're not loud, you're quiet.
Yes.
There's no trash on the street.
Yes.
Everybody polite. It's so,
that's just normal for Asian countries, I would say, because that comes from Confucianism. If you know, like they say, Confucius say. And so he's a Chinese philosopher or whatever from thousands of years ago, but the influence spread definitely all throughout Asia. And basically what Confucianism is like the complete opposite of American culture, in a sense. Like, it's not like your individuality doesn't mean a thing. You know what I mean? It's all about the group. It's all about the family. It's all about the community. What your needs, the needs of the community far outweigh the needs of the individual when it comes to, because of Confucianism. So most Asian countries have some sort of influence of Confucianism, I would say. So this kind of behavior, just like, it's like an alien. It's for an Asian to see this kind of behavior. It's like, what is this? Is this an alien? So it's just an Asian wouldn't even think of acting that way.
Yeah,
so,
they don't really know how to even react, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I mean, what was the name of the guy there was a guy that was like this, and it was in the U.S. and he was same thing. We'd go around annoying people, and was it a DoorDash guy that had picked up a pizza or something? He was getting in his face, annoying him, and the guy pulled a gun out and shot him, and then went to trial, and they dropped the charges because it made sense to me. It's like, what are you doing? Get out of my face! Bow.
Well, I mean, that's what I want to bring up too. Is like, how do you feel, Matt, like about the USA right now? Did you hear about this dude, Carmelo Anthony?
That sounds familiar.
So there's this kid, right? He's a high school kid, and there's footage of him stabbing the other high school kid, right?
Yeah.
And there's footage of it. And just as of yesterday, the judge let him off on bail. And they started like a GoFundMe for him that's already raised $450,000. So like, what's like the contrast for me is just so huge. Like, here we are, like, I would say, like would you consider us the most civilized nation? But yet we just let murderers go just like that. And then out there, somebody just disrespects people, and then he's in for like almost a decade. Who knows, So how do you feel about that? Like, that contrast right there?
I don't know. He's a kid. I could see letting him out on it's bail. You know what I'm saying? So in a way, I don't know that he is a danger right now. I think he probably thought he was a tough guy. And, the one kid told him, hey, you're sitting under the wrong tent. Maybe they got lippy. He pulled a knife out. He stabbed them. I think that's probably manslaughter. That's probably 15 to 20 year sentence. He's also, I think he's a kid, right? I think he's like a teenager. He's not 18. He shouldn't.
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, he shouldn't have brought a knife. He shouldn't have brought a knife, but it's not premeditated to the point where he knew, hey, I'm going to kill this guy. I think he had a knife because kids are stupid. You know what I'm saying? Kids will bring like a gun or a knife to school because they think, I need protection. The truth is, you don't need protection, and you're going to get in more trouble with that weapon. I think it's a stupid thing that he did, and I think he's probably guilty of manslaughter, which is not premeditated murder. I think probably he should have got bond, only because I don't think he's a danger right now. I think right now he's crying his eyes out. He's terrified. What bothers me is that his family is acting like, because I know the case. I remember the case you're talking about. The one kid, it was a black kid, and the white kid told him to kind of get up, and you're in the wrong thing. We don't know how that. I don't know how that conversation went. I know that his brother was there to witness it. I don't know if he was overly aggressive. I'm not sure how it went. Like, I'm a big believer in a jury's going to know. You and I aren't going to know. We know what the media told us. You know, how many times has the media told us a version, and then a year later, 2 years later, you find out what really happened, and then people scream about why did the jury let that person go? Well, the jury let that person go because they spent 4 days reviewing the evidence that you didn't see. You know, do I think I think O.J. Simpson is guilty, and he should have gone to prison for slaughtering these two people. But the jury saw all the evidence, and the jury said most of the evidence came from or was tainted by a detective that is a known racist that then got on the stand and lied. So if we throw out that evidence, because we can't trust that evidence now, do we have enough to convict him? Do I think in my heart he's guilty? Yes. But did I see enough evidence to put this man away for the rest of his life? No. So I'm a big believer in let that process kind of, it'd be different. Look, if he was an illegal alien that had stabbed somebody or robbed someone, my fear is we're never going to catch this guy. He's going to be out and about for the next 10 years, robbing and pillaging and plundering, or go back to his country. Don't let that guy out. Or if it's someone who's been arrested multiple times for this type of behavior, okay, he doesn't get out. You see what I'm saying? Like, this is just a kid. He may be an asshole, and what he did was absolutely fucked up, but he's probably on an ankle monitor, sitting in his parents' living room right now, crying his fucking eyes out and realizing just how much trouble he's in. His best chance is to try and take some kind of a plea that's going to get him out of prison in the next 10 years and try and salvage the rest of his life, because he took someone's life, and, it's manslaughter, and you could have walked away. So, but also keep in mind, I also live in Florida where you don't have to walk away. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you and I are out in public and we walk by and I bump you and I go, yo, my bad. And you go, oh, fuck you, man. And I go, fuck you. I said, I'm sorry. Fuck you. And the next thing you know, we're fighting each other. That's okay. When the cops show up, they'd go, what happened? Bumped me. I said, fuck you. He said, fuck you. We went back and forth. We got into a fist fight. He broke my nose, and the cops would be like, all right, well, y'all go home. You'd be like, what are you talking about? If you're in New York or you're in LA, they'd be like, what are you talking about? You broke his nose. Yeah, I know, but they don't have to walk away. They can, it's like Mortal Kombat. Like, you're allowed to have this whole fist fight. It's
right. Isn't that the name of the law?
No, stand your ground. Oh yeah, you're talking about there are guys that are shooting at each other. Will shoot at each other, and the cops will be like, yeah, we're not really gonna look into it. Why? It just sounds to me like it's just there's some kind of a law. It's like combat. I don't know if that's in Florida, but yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, where these guys will get into shootouts in the street. They shot at each other. Nobody got hurt. It's fine. They don't even charge them. Like, but I know who shot who and who. But yeah, I know. But these guys they both had guns. They were both shooting. Nobody got hurt. They shrug it off.
Well, that's the value in your point of view, because the other side of the story, from the behind the bars. You know what I mean? So,
right.
The other coin that everybody else doesn't see.
But I also see that I watched the video of the guy Vitaly.
Yeah,
he's a douche. So, but anyway, go ahead and keep. Listen.
He definitely.
I don't see that anything we just talked about. I don't see that anything we just talked about applies to him, because this is a guy who's going around terrorizing people and laughing about it. Wrong with it, right? So nothing we just said to me is applicable to what he was doing. He's just an asshole. And,
I agree. I just, because a lot of folks in my on the comments of the video that I made are just like trying to point a contrast between if there. A lot of them are saying like if this happened in the USA, somebody would even start a GoFundMe to bail them out. You know what I mean? I don't know if that would really happen, but
Well,
that's
there's always going to be somebody like that. There's always going to be those people, but I'm not contributing.
yeah, definitely not. Me neither. Yeah, I mean, I mean, initially when he started out, Vitaly, a lot of people liked him because, like I said, he thought of those original pranks. Like the one that really got him famous was he was just like talking to a girl, and then she'd blow him off, and then he'd pull up in a Lamborghini. You remember that one? And then she completely changed. So that's his claim to fame, and he just started off from that. And then I guess he also did a series before he got locked up last year, where he was it wasn't really douchebag content at all. He was catching child predators. So he'd set up stings where he'd set up these crazy predators to show up, and he'd expose them. So in my book, that was pretty cool.
I like the Lambo thing too.
Yeah, I mean, so he didn't start out like that, and I really, really think he was just desperate to restart his career, and he really thought the biggest splash he could make was doing this kind of content because it's already trending. You know what I mean? So any kind of new nuisance streamer is gonna get a lot of attention. He just didn't know the culture that he was gonna do that in. Which was really sad.
So he's been doing this in the Philippines?
Yeah, so this is where he did it in the Philippines.
How long? So I mean, what happened? What went wrong that he ended up in jail?
Well, he was just streaming all these stunts that, just annoying things. But the big ones were the biggest charges are threatening to rob an old lady, grabbing. I think he tried. I'm not sure if he was successful, but he tried to grab a gun from a security guard.
Oh, no.
And that is definitely serious. And
I saw the one where he grabbed the hat off of the cop and he takes off running, and like they wouldn't.
There's not clear footage that I've found of him trying to get the gun, but it's definitely a charge. So I don't know if that's really true, but it's one of the charges. And then trying to steal a patrol bike. Yeah. And then what's funny is the cop was just looking at him like, what's going on here? He's like, he couldn't even process what was going on. It was hilarious. And then one of the things is unjust vexation. That's a thing, I guess. I don't know. You vexed me, so you're going to jail. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't think that's certainly not a thing here, but
yeah, I mean, if it was a thing here, a lot of people would definitely be going to jail. You know what I mean? Because like out here, like some people like vex people for a freaking hobby. But yeah.
Well, first of all, the problem was the videos that I watched of him doing all the annoying stuff, annoying people, vexing people.
Yeah.
Is that by the time they got to the thing with the cop, where he kind of took the bike from the cop and he stops. He actually gets going and the cop's just standing there. He stops and he looks at the cop and he goes like, yo, bro, I want you to chase me. Like the cop's just completely confused. But by the time I got to that video, I was so annoyed. Like if it had just been that video, I would have been like, oh, that's kind of funny. But the fact is I'd watched like 4 or 5 other videos prior to that. And by that point I was like, God, this guy's a prick.
Yeah.
And so what was I going to say? I do find the annoying videos, I've seen some of them that are comical, but the ones that I think are funny are the ones where some guy walks, be some young white kid will run up to like a black guy and try and like grab his wallet or walk up and try and hold his hand or something. And the what? And he just then he's chasing him. The guy's like, "It's a prank, bro! It's a prank! It's a prank! It's a prank!" And the guy's stopping him. They have to show the video, and he's like, "And these guys are ready to kill you."
Yeah. But
those are funny.
so
But he doesn't get that reaction. Nobody's coming after him in these videos. They're just
they're
completely,
like I said, because it's like alien behavior. It's so unfamiliar. It's so not. They can't process it basically, because like I said, the whole Confucian thing. Asians, we keep our heads down. We don't like to rock the boat. We respect our elders. That's like the thing right there. So anybody that acts a different way, we don't know what to do. So to the point, like in this other dude, Johnny Somali, that's been doing this for the last 2 years, they just deport him. Like he goes to one Asian country. No, actually, some of them, they even just make him say a video apologizing and stuff like that. But then to the point that they just rack up so many charges, they have to prosecute him. But when he gets this dude Vitaly in the Philippines, man, just one incident. No, not one incident, but just one trip. And I don't know if you saw my video, but like I say, living hell. So Matt, what's your reaction seeing the footage of Filipino prisons? Like, how would you compare American prisons? Is it?
Man, that.
How do you make that feel?
Yeah, it's insane. They're just piled. It makes me think of that prison that is it El Salvador, where they've built that.
Right, the mega prison.
Yeah, the mega prison, like 100. They holds like 80 or 100,000 people or something ridiculous. They just pile them in. Like you don't get a mattress, you don't get nothing. It's you in your underwear, and you got a pair of boxers and a tank top. Maybe you're in there with. There's 100 guys in this cell, 100 guys in that cell. They mix up the gang members. They're not playing. It's absolutely their rules. It made me think of that, only less clean. Because at least that one, the El Salvador one, is clean because it's brand new.
It looked like spotless. Yeah.
And I've met these guys that have been in those types of prisons, and like there's like a hole where you shit in a hole in the side. You go up there and there's feces smeared all around. Like these guys get dysentery. They have diarrhea. They throw up. They get dehydrated. They die. Like they don't care at all about these guys. They don't care. They give you a 5-year sentence and maybe you survive the 5 years. Now, I don't know that it's like that there. It might be perfectly, maybe they are taking care of them and feeding them, and that's not the case. Maybe there's decent facilities for the bathroom or whatever.
So that's the other thing is money talks in the Philippines. So
it does in most of those countries like that, by the way, like Mexico, the cartel. If you're a cartel and you have money, they get like a whole wing of the prison. They're catered to.
Same thing. So same thing. What I was trying to say is like Vitaly has a choice. He could be in with the rest of them, or he could pay millions. And if you got it, if I was in his shoes, if I got it, I'm giving it.
Yeah.
Even if they're bleeding me dry, I'm going to do it. Like, would you? Like,
yeah, I've talked to, this would be great if my editor actually went and cut out some of the explanations from some of these guys we've interviewed that have gone to, I want to say we had a guy that was in a Venezuelan prison. I know I got it wrong, by the way. So I'm sure, but he did like, one guy did like a year in, let's say, a Venezuelan prison. No, wait, where did he go? Was it? Oh shoot, I don't know. Anyway, like South America. Yeah, I think we have 3 different people that did time in South American prisons. One guy did like 7 or 8 years And I mean, but keep in mind, he had his family who are sending him money. And it wasn't, I hate to say that it's not expensive, but it's not thousands of dollars a month. For $300 a month, he had a cell. He had his own cell or a cell with another guy. And an extra couple hundred here, couple hundred there. So by the time he's at $500-600, less than $1,000, he's living like a king there. Now,
Okay.
So now I don't know if it's like that.
Pretty good deal.
Now I was locked up in Coleman, a prison in Florida, and there was a guy there. I mean, there were several guys there, but there was one guy that my buddy Pete was friends with, and he was a cartel member, and he had done like 5 years in a prison in Mexico, and then he probably did 10 years in the U.S., and he was at a low. Listen, him in Mexico, the way he talked about Mexico, and he had a binder of photos that he showed us. It's not like him talking. He's got photos of the prison and his cell. They're drinking Corona. Yeah, they got 3 or 4 cell phones. He's still running drugs from inside the prison.
Yeah.
And they did a few, I forget what he paid. My buddy Pete would remember. I think it was a few $1,000s. It was like maybe it was $4,000 or $5,000 a month. The cartel had a whole wing where they were allowed to have women come in for
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
no more than 10 days.
Wow.
Like, you're allowed to have, and he's like, yeah. Then you had to have like a 2-day break. Then it started over again. Like, they had a whole thing, and he would talk about, and then I forget there was a maximum per month, which was like, it was whatever it was. It was like 20 days or only 20 days a month or something. He's like, you could break it up 2 days
for one girl or one girl, or
because he would have he always called them strippers, but they were hookers, obviously. He would have 2 women come in, stay with him for a week, then they'd have to leave, and then 2 days later his wife would come in, spend 4 or 5 days, and then have to leave for a couple of days. Then the girls would come back. Oh, it was insane, and the photographs were insane.
Yeah. Same thing with the Philippines. Yeah.
It was thousands of dollars. I don't know what kind of money Vitaly's got.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like when you're in a developing country, and then they know, oh, he's from America, he's white, he's a streamer, he's famous. They're gonna they're gonna raise the prices. You know what I mean? The main reason, Matt, that I know a lot of this shenanigans out there is because I spent high school there, and
in prison?
I was a really bad. No, in the Philippines. Yeah, and I was a really bad boy out there. To the point that I got in circles with some of the really, really bad people that I could have ended up in jail in one of those prisons in the Philippines, or dead. So that's why I'm here. But I still have ties out there. I still have property out there, and I go there at least once a year. So I'm really familiar with the culture. And like I said, out there, it's not in the thousands of dollars. It's a lot. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for, like, especially if they know you got money. We're talking maybe it gets up there. It really does. Hundreds of thousands, I would say, in the Philippines, because I know personally people that have gone through the system and have had to pay. And they're not even foreigners. These are Filipinos, but they're high profile people. So just because they know they have money, they charge a lot more. So it's probably going to be the same thing for this guy.
You ever read a headline and think, wait, that's not what I read earlier? Or hear a story that was covered 2 totally different ways and think, I wonder which one's telling the truth? We all know the news can be biased. Algorithms push stories that they think you want to see, and some outlets spin stories to fit a certain agenda. It's exhausting trying to figure out what's real, what's exaggerated, and what's just straight up misinformation. That's why I use Ground News. It's a news platform that doesn't just show you the headlines, it shows you the whole story. It gathers articles from across the political spectrum, tells you the bias of each source, and even lets you compare how different outlets are framing the same event. For example, the recent federal health agency layoffs. Left-leaning news described the layoffs as a major crisis, calling them a bloodbath that could harm important public health work like tracking diseases. On the other hand, right-leaning news saw the layoffs as positive change. They called it a win-win for taxpayers, which could save $1.8 billion a year. Both sides agree the layoffs and changes were happening, but they strongly disagree on what it meant. Ground News lets you compare these side by side so you can actually see the bias and decide for yourself what to believe. You can also see things like how news sources are covering a particular story, political leaning of news outlets, and the blind spot feed where you can see stories that are disproportionately covered by one side of the political spectrum. In a world of clickbait and echo chambers, having access to all perspectives is more important than ever. That's why I love Ground News. It helps me cut through the noise and stay truly informed. And right now you can get 40% off the Vantage plan for unlimited access. Just hit the link in my description, ground.news/inside, and start seeing the news differently today.
When you say hundreds of thousands, you mean like a having your own room is 10,000 a month kind of thing, like,
or maybe it's going to be like, maybe I would say it's going to be like a year thing where it's going to be like, give us 10 million pesos, which is like $200,000. That's the kind of stuff they want. Because those, and it's not, it's going to be like for this amount of time, and then you have to pay again. And it's probably not going to be a monthly thing, but it's going to be probably like a yearly thing, or every time they're going to keep asking. It's going to be not on a scheduled time, but when they want to, they're going to keep asking. You know what I mean? So it's probably going to be like 10 million each time they ask, because they're going to want like 10 million pesos. Like I said, 200 grand, something like that. Just from what I know from like one of my neighbors that gone through the whole system, and that's what he had to do, pretty much.
Does it matter that he's high profile, like they won't give him the opportunity, or that he'll be under more scrutiny as a result of that, and it's possible that that doesn't apply to him?
Find a way. They always find a way. Yeah, I mean, especially when we're talking millions out there. Yeah, they always find a way.
And it's not like he can go to trial and try and beat this. Well, one, he's guilty; it's on film. But two, if he went to trial, he'd be in even more trouble. Is that right?
It's so obvious that he's guilty because it's all live streamed. You know, everything was live streamed, so all the evidence is on the internet, which is horrible for him. The only question is, does he deserve it? Do those pranks? Yeah, he vexed some people. Yeah, he did this and that, but does he deserve that for that amount of time?
Based on what I saw, and I'm not sure how you justify. I'm not sure how you justify what I saw. Like I would, if you said, "Oh no, those people were in on it," I'll tell you right. The old lady that he was kind of hounding and giving a hard time to, and he was saying, "If you don't take this money, I'm going to rob you. I'm going to," he was giving her a hard time. Yeah. I mean, does he deserve it? I don't know if he deserves 5 years, but he deserves to spend some time in prison. I don't know if that's a year or 5 years. I don't think it's more than 5 years. I think first of all, it bothers me that you would go to another country and not be extremely polite, right? Like, I'm polite.
That's just normal. That's just normal.
In the U.S., I'm polite. So if I'm in your country, I'm going to be extremely polite. So it doesn't make sense.
Normal for.
Yeah, I'm going to go to your country just so I can give people shit, because if I did in the U.S., there's a chance I might get shot or get the shit kicked out of me. So I'm going to go somewhere where people aren't used to this, and they're more docile, and they're not going to react in a violent manner, because I don't have the balls to put up with an American's reaction, which is going to be horrific.
Yeah. I think you just summed it up right there. Why they would do that out there? Yeah.
Like I said, to me, it's probably a year. His behavior is probably a year in prison and another year for being an asshole. It's probably 2 years. You're going to come because he's an asshole.
I agree. Anything more than that, I think would be a little bit too much. But what's really sad is, like I said, it's going to be the elections, and they're going to make him a poster boy to get reelected. And the thing about Filipinos is they're really, really sensitive about how they're what's it called? How they're perceived by others. Because, like I said earlier, colonized by Spain, America, Japan. So like we have this kind of like inferiority complex. So if somebody just disrespect us, we gang up on you. Like it's kind of crazy, but it's sad, but it's true. And it's just the way it is. And from the comment section in my video, they want blood. Yeah, they're pretty pissed off, and they want to give him as much as they possibly can.
My buddy, I have a buddy, like I said, that lives in, he did live in Bangkok, and then they just had that earthquake.
Oh, wow. That was crazy.
Oh no, he was in bed. Like he was in his apartment in bed in his underwear. He ran down.
One of those high rise?
Yes. 30th floor.
Oh my gosh.
He said he scaled down the elevator. He broke his foot. This is what, I don't know if he ever went to the hospital, but he said it's broken. He's like, I'm telling you, it's broken. He said he said towards the end, he was leaping down the stairs. He said, he did a video about it. He starts crying in the video. He's like, I've never been so fucking scared in my whole life. But so he goes all the way down the stairs. He did a whole video. He's already moved to Cambodia. So he went to Cambodia. I don't know if he's staying there or not, but they wouldn't let them back in the building. Like they let him go back in for 10 stuff and leave. And he's like, so I'm kind of homeless. So he went to Cambodia because you have to leave every 30 days or 60 days to renew your visa. I don't know what he's doing exactly, but he had told me, because he was making videos about being in Thailand. And one of the things that he said was, well, I said, what you ought to do is talk about what's good and what's bad, like the difference between the U.S. and this, because he would talk to me about it. And he goes, I don't want to do that. He said, the problem is, he said, I don't want to say anything bad about Thailand at all. And I was like, why? He said, they'll throw you out, bro. He said, they'll throw you out. He said, I've already seen videos where guys get thrown out for really not for saying he is much at all. He said, but they don't, he said, they don't want to have anything negative said. And he said, they'll just come and grab you and put you in a holding tank and put you on a plane and throw you out. He said, it's over. He said, no.
Yeah. Well, Thailand, they got a king. So, full on monarchy, like whatever he says goes. You're not even allowed, like if you're in the same room, your head in Thailand, your head is never supposed to be above the king's. So you always have to be like lower somehow. Interesting.
Wow, I'm like 5'6". If I was the king, I'd.
Me too, man. So.
I like that though.
Yeah. But yeah, Philippines is different though. It was a colony. It was the only colony of the USA. So what's interesting about the Philippines is they have almost the same exact constitution as America, which is really cool. Yeah, which is, I don't know if it's related, but that's what's cool about the Philippines is like same like First Amendment, Second Amendment, everything. So yeah, so it's one of the freest places rights-wise in the world, next to America, because we share the same constitution.
But they still have their own kind of code as far as like don't be
laws and stuff.
Yeah, don't be disrespectful. Don't.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, just also with the whole attitude when they try to prosecute someone, they don't have any mercy.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, like here, I feel like America is just really the best place to be a criminal in the whole world. And you know what I mean? If you're going to be a criminal, you're lucky if you got caught in the States, because everywhere else, they just.
Well, I was going to say, I actually think there's some places like Canada. Yeah. You'd have to look. I've interviewed some Canadian guys. I don't know what they're doing there. Like, I don't know how that whole place isn't just criminals. Like they just don't lock anybody up, not for any length of time. Like if you get 15 years here,
Right.
you're getting 5 years there. You're doing 1 year, and then they're putting an ankle monitor on you and telling you to go home and get a job and just live your life. And it's like,
Sounds like California.
yeah, I did a year on 5 years in the States. I'd get 15. And one of the big things that they do there, if you've committed crimes in the U.S., is they'll threaten to send you to the U.S. and everybody's terrified to go to the U.S. and because they're like, I'll get 20 years, almost 20 years. So,
Man.
yeah, there was a famous case where there was a guy who was counterfeiting American money and spending it in, he was somehow or another he was spending it in Canada, or he was also selling it in Canada and having people go to the U.S. and spend it somehow or another. I forget exactly what he was doing, but when he got caught, he was fighting the case, and that's when they finally brought in the Secret Service, and they said, if you don't plead guilty in Canada and take this plea, and it was like 5 years, nothing. It was 5 years.
What?
They were like, then we're going to bring you to the U.S. and prosecute you there. And he immediately pled guilty. He said, okay, I didn't realize
My mistake. I guess Canada is the best place for a criminal, not the USA.
if you hear these guys' stories, and the prisons are better, and just across the board, they just don't give as much time. But other than that, you're right. Probably at least you get some due process here. Some of these places listen. If anybody does watch this far, we'll put up some of the videos from some of the guys that have been locked up in South American countries. Yeah. And I just did a video on a guy who had been locked up in Turkey. And what happened? Listen to this. This is
Muslim country.
This guy got 4. I think he got 4. I could be wrong. It was 4 or 5 years. He got like 4 years though, I think. So he got 4 years just as and no, I think he got 5 years and he was going to do 4 with good time of some. They have gave you some.
What did he do?
He smuggled like a couple of keys of marijuana or something. So they gave him 5 years, but luckily they didn't charge him with smuggling, because they charged him with possession. So he got 5 years. So he had almost finished. He was 50 days away from finishing his sentence. The government appealed the decision. They bring him back to court. They give him life. He then appeals that, and they lower it to 30 years. So you got 30 years for 2 keys of marijuana.
So he's out now?
He did get out. He escaped.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did he escape from a Turkish prison?
This happened like 30, 40 years ago. Did you ever see the movie Midnight Express? So it's a movie that was made back in like the 70s or something. 70s, late 70s, I want to say. And they made a movie called The Midnight Express, and that's when it happened. But he's like, the laws haven't gotten any better. It's more brutal now than ever. And once again, like, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can. Most of these countries you go into, and your best bet is just to plead guilty, because if you try and mount any type of defense, they have like 100% conviction rating. So you're going to lose.
Right.
They're going to give you 50 years. The one that I said, did I say it was Venezuela? I forget anyway, I forget
South America.
Somewhere in South America. The prisoners have guns. They have guns in this. Oh yeah, in the prison, they have the amount of weapons that they have. And this guy paid for his own cell. I think he did, like I said, 7 or 8 years. It was outrageous. His video is insane. I think we had to edit it so badly. I mean, we had butchered this video because it was just, the whole thing was so violent. Violence of the guy. And it was something where, like, he had smuggled something one time out of one country, and then he was going to smuggle another time, and they were like, yeah, but this time we're going to go here. And he got caught like the first time he did it, and got 15 years or 10 years or something, and did 7 or whatever it was.
And he's American.
Yeah, he was American. Young kid. He was like 19 years old. He was just a kid.
Oh, man.
They don't care. They don't care. And the American embassy is not going to help you.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. What do you think Trump's going to do? You think Trump's going to do anything about this dude? No. I mean, he was being an ass. He was being.
Yeah, I was going to say, could you imagine showing Trump those videos? He'd be like, "Guy's a jackass." Went to another country, you're a jackass.
That's what I would say if I was Trump.
I think he'll go there. I think his family will flood the prison with money, and I think he'll have the best possible time he can have. And let's say he does get the 5 years. That's what the other second video I watched, they made it sound like the president said he would get 5 or 10 years. But you're right. I never heard the president say that. I think they were alluding that
it was the prosecutor saying per charge it's 5 years, but the actual hearings he said would be 2 to 3 years because everything's backed up. So mandatory looks like going to be 2 to 3 years just to go through the trial.
So what do you mean? So 2 to 3 years before he is tried?
Just to get a verdict.
Does that come off? If he gets 5 years, if he waits 2 years and he gets 5, the 2 year come off the 5? Probably, right?
He didn't say that. The prosecutor didn't say that, but he said 2 to 3 years, and then per charge is 5 years. He said so. Insane.
I mean, his best bet is to try and just plead guilty, apologize his ass off, say I'm a jackass. But, like you said, he already went to trial this other thing, and that didn't teach him a lesson.
No. Yeah.
Right? You just said he had just faced charges before.
Yeah.
Right?
In the States, but he was acquitted for some reason.
Really?
And it was pretty brutal. The photo of the woman he beat up is a woman. So.
Yeah, I was going to say he's I don't think nobody's going to have any sympathy for this guy.
So what do you feel, Matt? Do you think the U.S. is too lax? Do you think we should at least nudge a little bit toward that way, or do you think we're just fine?
I think that our sentences now I only know the federal system. I think the federal system sentences are brutal. I think that we should focus more on violent criminals. I'm always amazed that you'll give a white collar criminal 20 years and then somebody will kill someone and get 12. It's like,
right.
What? So I think that the sentencing guidelines need to be adjusted. And I think that people should probably be placed on probation. Maybe you go to jail for 2 years or 3 years, and then you get another 3 years on probation, because I think that helps people. You have to get a job, right? Do you see what I'm saying? That's the kind, they have so much control over you. You go to prison for 10 years and get out, you've learned nothing. If you go for 3 years and you put this guy on probation and an ankle monitor for 7 years and say you have to get a job or we're going to throw you back in jail, and you have to pay for the monitoring, it's $100 a month, they'll do that instead of going back to jail. I'd rather let somebody, I'd rather live in a rooming house on an ankle monitor and go work at McDonald's, because I can watch YouTube and I can play video games and I can do whatever people want to do. It's a better life out here than it is in there. And after 6 or 7 years, and maybe you even tell them, hey, you can earn your way off of this if you behave. Maybe it's not 7 years. Maybe it's 3.5 years, as long as you behave and don't get yourself jammed up and thrown back in jail. And what happens is, for the first time, you got a drug dealer who's never done anything but sell drugs, and now he's been working for Target for 3 years. And if you take that ankle monitor off of him, now he's like, I can live like this. This is not a bad life. So you teach him something. And I think you do, and you can do that a lot more inexpensively than keeping him in prison.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. How much money is that going to save taxpayers? Tons.
A ton, because prisons. So I think in the federal system, I think it's $35,000 a year. $35,000 a year in the federal system, and I want to say it's like 25,000 in the states because they're cheaper. But either way, if this guy's out on monitor and he's paying $100 in, he's also paying into taxes. So but here's the problem is that most of our departments, or bureaus in the United States are just not designed to try and save money. There's no incentive to try and save money. So
the incentive is to spend the money.
Yeah, and get more inmates. So if you're the Bureau of Prisons and the Department of Justice, and for every person you prosecute, you get so much money. For every person incarcerated, you get so much money. There's no incentive to try and get you out of the prison. They want more prisoners. So there needs to be kind of a rethinking. The problem is that there's no good solution. There will never be a good solution. There will never be a perfect system. There will never be a system where you say, our justice system is, it's perfect. It's as good as it can get. Our justice system is extremely flawed, but with the exception of those minor tweaks that I just mentioned, it's pretty good. It's not great. There's no great system, but it's not bad.
No, not at all. Compared to the rest of the world, yeah, definitely.
Especially in comparison, yes. In comparison to the other for a lot of other countries, it's superior. But then there's other countries that are probably even more. It's such a balance, bro. It's such a delicate,
But I do like those ideas because one thing is like, especially if you're in a more higher security prison, just the culture of violence that's there, you know what I mean? The culture of the gangster culture and everything is, you're just immersed in it 24/7. Right when you get out, you know what I mean? You're in your head, in your soul, you're still in that culture right when you get out. So I think what you were describing, if they could get out a little bit earlier, just be monitored, that way they can kind of shed that culture slower, you know what I mean? They don't have to right away just completely, like a fish out of water, have to be able to participate in society right away, you know what I mean?
I'm sorry. I was just saying the other thing about reducing the prison population is that for every like 4 or 5 inmates, there's one guard, and I don't mean guards in the unit or in the prisons, but there's guards that are working, they're doing clerical things, or there's employees. I shouldn't say guards. There's employees. So there's, for every 4 or 5 inmates, there's an employee in the Bureau of Prisons. So you think, okay, but do you know that right now for every probation officer right now is monitoring about 60 parolees. So think about that. So how many more people can we monitor with less employees if they're on ankle monitors? And the bulk of prisoners aren't violent.
So
that's
were you in a higher security facility?
I was in a medium security prison for 3 years, and then for like 9 years I was in a low security. I never made it to a camp. A camp would be like a facility where there's no fences. So when I say medium, a medium prison is exactly what you think it is. Like there's guys getting stabbed on the rec yard. There's gangs. There's that 2-tier system where you walk in, you got the stairs, and there's a second tier, and it's very much what you think. It's not a pen.
Okay.
Guys, penitentiaries, guys in the pens, it's extremely violent. I mean, very, very violent. And those guys, when they get out, they get less instructions, less help, less halfway house, and they are more prone to recidivism, to come back. So that guy gets out
because that's their culture. You know what I mean? That's just the way of life in the prison. You just let them out. I mean, they gotta adapt. They have to adapt somehow. Would you consider for those the stuff you're proposing? Would you consider doing for those kinds of guys, or?
Yeah, if they were non-violent, I think you need more monetization. you need to be monitored more. You need more monitoring the higher you are. Maybe those guys have to stay in a halfway house longer. They need to be monitored more. The real problem is, I'll give you one example. And I'm not a violent person, and I don't, I'm not someone who's typically subject to rash decisions. Here's what happens is, even in the medium, even in the lows, in prisons in general, if I call you a bitch, that's absolutely fighting immediately. But when I got out of prison, I went to work for a guy who says it all the time. He's like, bitch, you're crazy. And I mean, the first time he said it, the heat shot up from my stomach into my chest. And I'm telling you, my face turned red. And for a split second, I was just like, and I'm not that guy. Yeah, I'm not that guy, bro. Like, I'm not violent. I'm not. But I said,
the culture.
Right. It had been 13 years. And the only time I ever heard someone say that, immediately, dudes, it's kicking off. And so when I heard that, I was
physical reaction to it.
Physical reaction. And I'm not even that person. I'm not in a gang. I'm not getting fights. I'm not. So what's it going to be like if a guy from the pen went and worked for that guy?
Yeah, he'd probably kill him.
Right. And he, you know what, in his mind, he wouldn't have thought anything of it. He would have thought he disrespected me. And in a way, in the pen, I have to do something, because if I don't, then everybody thinks they could do that. They could come in my cell. They'll take things from me. They'll abuse me. So I have to survive. So for them, it's more than just, hey, bro, don't sit, like, don't do that. It's survival for them. It wasn't even.
And it's instinct by that point. You don't even think by that point. It's just like breathing. You know what I mean? Like it's survival. It's survival. But yeah.
So the guys that end up in pens, I don't know what they do. I don't know. You'd have to keep them in a halfway house for a couple of years. They'd have to have, there are programs right now in prison. There's a program called the RDAP program. It's the residential drug, I want to say drug abuse program or drug something. Anyway, and you actually take these guys and put them in a special unit where they take classes during the day. And it's really a behavior modification program. It really has nothing to do with drugs. And I've always said, but what it really teaches you is it's rational thinking. So it's cause and effect, right? Like, if I do this, this is what's going to happen. And so it has you think through the things that you do right now naturally. Instinctively, you do this already. These guys don't do that. If something happens for you, let's say you're in a store and for even a split second, you thought, nobody's watching, I can grab this item, stick it in my satchel or whatever, and walk right out, and nobody would know. Yeah. For you, that probably didn't even cross your mind. But if it did, for these guys, it's like, damn, opportunity. They don't think, wait a minute, what's going to happen? If I do get caught, which I might, there is a possibility, I get caught, I get arrested. I have to go to jail. I have to try and get out. If I don't get out, I can't go to work tomorrow. If I don't go to work, I'll lose my apartment. If I lose my apartment, like, I can't see my kids. If I can't get it. You
really got to spell it out.
And they don't. They don't. They think, opportunity. Steal.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that mentality. I learned this in the Philippines. There's a lot of poor people out there, and to them, like, the kids, it's sad, with a lot of inner city kids out here too. It's like, to them, it's like grace from God. You know what I mean? There's something there. If you didn't get it, it's like, what are you doing? You're saying no to grace. It's there. God put it there for you to steal. So that's kind of the mentality too, which is when I first heard that, definitely shocking to me. But and also what you just explained, how you just see one thing, you don't even think the next steps behind that. But I guess other people, they don't even do that. Yeah, that explains why someone would end up like that.
Yeah. So the problem, like I said, those are the guys that need the most help and get the least help. And this is a thing, they're going to release them anyway. Does that make sense? Like if you're saying, oh, well, that guy shot somebody, fuck him. He deserves what he gets. I understand he deserves what he got. And I understand he got 25 years, but they're going to release him. Like,
right.
We save some money, release him earlier, but monitor him because the probation officer can monitor that guy better.
Make sure he can integrate in society.
Exactly. So he doesn't have to commit another crime, because what's really happening is people are going to prison. They're doing all their time. They're getting they're not getting any training, and they're being released, and they commit more crimes, and they go right back to jail. And people say, see, they're horrible people. And you're right. They are horrible people. You just let out a horrible person that you never tried to fix his behavior.
You also explained why the prisons don't want to do that is because their business model is going to be affected.
Yeah.
So if just for a taxpayer, I would definitely want the money going to rehabilitating their actual mental state.
But it doesn't,
because, like you said, they're going to be let out.
Yeah. If you're a politician, though, you don't get elected by saying, hey, let's put some money into rehabilitating these guys, or hey, let's let these guys out an extra 20%. Let's knock 20% off their time so we can train them while they're out. That's not a good sell. That's not going to get you elected. What gets you elected is give them more time, lock them up longer, keep civilians safe. And then what's really happens is this: you let out 100,000 guys, and 99,900 of them, and 99 reacclimate, and one guy gets out early, and he murders
just the one guy.
And that's it. That's all they'll focus on. They take away all the and I used to say this all the time when we were in prison, because every once in a while the administration would try and do something. Like they do something like they had a room they designated for, you could watch DVDs. So they went out, they got all these DVDs, they got all these little flat screens. You could watch them. You could sign up to go watch the new the new King Kong movie, or the new whatever, some romantic comedy, and you sign up for it, and you go to your time and you put it in there, and very quickly the inmates that are working there start selling the slots. You had to pay, and then somebody gets angry and they break a screen, or somebody steals a screen and tries to, and the next thing you know, and I used to always say, like, the
can't do it anymore.
Well, the inmates ruin it. The inmates ruin every time they try and do something for you, they ruin it. And the only response for staff is take it all away. It's never measured. It's like, I didn't do it. I've been renting and I'm good, and I sign up, and it's Jimmy. Jimmy's the asshole. Like, punish Jimmy. It doesn't work. It's like I said, anytime you throw human beings into a system, they ruin it. They just screw it up. So there's no solution.
It's really interesting how everything can just edit. You can just make money out of everything in prison. It's so interesting how I think being in prison teaches you how to be an entrepreneur, because everything.
Yeah.
Did you have the same experience?
As what?
Learning how to be an entrepreneur in prison.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. What I did was I wrote a memoir, and then after I wrote my memoir, I started writing other guys' memoirs.
Right.
And I wasn't charging them, but what I was doing was I would get them to attach their life rights to what I'd written. So when I got out, I knew when I got out, I could option their life rights. If I could sell that product, that would be able to go and say, hey, I've got this amazing story, a true story. And if you were a producer and you wrote it and you said, I'd love to take this, I had the ability to say, and by the way, I have a signed agreement where the person has optioned their life rights. So I'm not just selling my article, I'm selling the life rights, which is something that it's valuable. And so suddenly the producer who's like, wow, like that keeps me from being sued. So this person's obviously going to participate. And two, they're not going to go behind my back and try and talk to somebody else because I already have an agreement with them. And three, they're not going to sue me later for stealing their life story. You've already attached your life rights to it. So I knew that was worth something. And so that's kind of what I did. And
that's how you started the podcast, right?
It morphed into it. Like I didn't know about the podcast. I'd never been on YouTube. When I got locked up, YouTube had just come out. Their podcasts weren't even a thing till 2009, and I'd already been locked up 3 years. So
how did it feel like a time machine getting out after like 13 years?
I'd never seen a cell phone. I mean, I'd never seen an iPhone. This is like magic. These things are magic, bro. Texting had just come out. Facebook had just come out.
When you got in, it was like Nokia phones, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, I had the Razor.
There you go. And then you get an iPhone, you're like, what the heck?
Insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I started doing podcasts because but I didn't really know what I was going to do when I kind of was like, yeah, I'm going to try and do one of these true crime podcasts. But even that was not what this ended up being. I thought I was going to interview people and then there would be the music and it was going to be a super produced, very produced, and it wasn't going to be this kind of a thing. But this is what it turned out being because, you have to hire a whole production company to do that. And in the end, I don't know that you get that much more out of heavily produced content.
No, I mean, it's just really about what you guys talk about, If you're talking about crap, if it looks amazing, you're still talking about crap.
What's funny is I'm going to say this because then Colby will hear this. Colby will be like, what? It's funny because the other day, so a couple months ago, I have two buddies who have YouTube channels. Well, I have multiple buddies, but these two guys have very successful ones. One is Julian Dory and one is Danny Jones. And they were sending me, like we're on a text thread, all of us, or they were sending out that basically like, I forget what Danny was, but they were comparing like where they fell on Spotify, where their things fell, right? Where they went.
Yeah.
And I contacted my producer Colby and I was like, bro, where are we ranked? And he came, he said, oh, I think you have to sign up, and I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know how. Let me look into it. I never heard anything else about it. Last night, he sent me one. And out of 2,300 true crime podcasts that are on Spotify, we're 45.
Wow.
So I was like, right? Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because, the stories are compelling. You can't deny them. They're real AF. Let me ask you this, Matt. In the US, is there any kind of bribes that you can pay to get special treatment, or is that not a thing at all?
In prison?
Yeah.
I mean, in the federal system, I mean, there might be. It's more like guys trying. You could probably bribe a correctional officer to bring in. Not probably, I know you can, but it depends on. You could also get in trouble trying to bribe them, but guys will bribe them to bring in drugs or a cell phone, so it's more like bringing in stuff. It's not so much getting a special cell and not having it like I have my own cell. That's probably not going to happen, not for too long.
Yeah.
But you could probably bribe them to bring in stuff, and that happens. Not probably, it happens all the time, but it's not nearly to the degree that it happens in these other countries. Like these other countries, it's just blatant. It's blatant.
Yeah, prison guards with BMWs, and that's what we're talking about.
And yeah, the guards they get paid so little in these countries.
Yeah,
they're getting paid right.
They're getting paid nothing. So what else do they have? Yeah. Same thing. Just from all the way from prison guards all the way to the customs officials. They're all driving nice cars because that's just what they do. They take bribes.
Are you good? You feel good? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like we've covered everything. I
for
feel
sure.
great
Yeah,
for an hour. I didn't think we were going to get even an hour. You started asking me questions, bro. You don't get me talking. I'm a talker.
but I mean, so I'm just curious, like want to see the point of view of someone's actually, and the other side, because everybody wants to see him burn,
He's such a dick, though, man. He's just
Exactly.
like all those videos. Like I kind of try to look at it like, well, what could justify what he's doing? And I'm like, dude, there's nothing to justify it. These poor people are just trying to live their life. Like I'm trying to walk home from work, bro. What are you doing? And you're giving these guys a hard time, and I can imagine treating a cop. Could you imagine treating a U.S. cop that?
He would have been shot immediately.
Yeah, he'd have at least gotten his ass beat. He'd have gotten his ass beat, been in cuffs,
Well,
been in the back.
pepper sprayed in the least.
Yeah. Right.
And it just goes up from there. But, if I was a cop, I would have shot him.
Yeah, I mean,
especially if he's trying to grab a gun. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, the gun thing. I didn't even know about the gun thing. That's so over. That'll get you shot every time. I think the pepper spray or tased is more, But the moment he went for if he did go for a gun, yeah, it's over.
I had no bed, just a concrete slab to sleep on. There was no bed, no mattress, no sheets, no pillow, nothing. I believe I ate bread for the next 2 days, like loaves of bread with nothing else. And after that, they came in and just told me, listen, kid, you're going, get ready, turn around, boom, handcuff me. They take me outside and they put me in the back of a pickup, like some 1989 Nissan piece of garbage with nothing and just like a welded metal bar, and they handcuffed me to this welded bar in the back of the pickup. Mind you, now I have to take a trip from Quito all the way to Tulcan, which is where the case started. This is where they get the guy that was bringing me the drugs. So he go through the border of Colombia and Ecuador. So he's passing through Ipiales, Colombia, going into Tulcan, Ecuador, over a bridge. Now this bridge has customs. So they stop him, he gets nervous, and they catch him. He talks to them, and they tell him, give up the guy that you're bringing it to. They set up an operation, and I didn't know, but they were already watching me the whole day at Quito.
That was the whole delay. This whole delay was because of that. Okay.
The whole delay was because of that. And they were watching me already at the hotel, seeing if I had any other connects or I had other contacts that I was seeing in Quito. They were watching me the whole time, which I found out later on in the trial. So,
oh my God, you're at the trial.
Yeah. So after that, I get on this ride. We're going through the mountains all the way to Tulcan. Craziest ride of my life, just bumpy. It's horrible. I don't know if you know about the roads in Ecuador, but they're horrible. It's all mountainous. There's paved roads. There's rocky roads. We finally get to Tulcan. They take me to this place that's called the Cuartel. So it's basically like the police academy. So they have trainees, they have, normal police people. This is where they put their cars away and all their guns and everything. And right next door is this small jail for the city of Tulcan. So they put me in this police academy. I guess that's where they hold the prisoners before they take them to the small jail. And I walk into this little holding cell, and there's 3 guys there, local guys, all like Scarface, tatted up. They look like, out of a movie, scary guys. They see me and they're like, oh, gringo. And I talk to them in Spanish immediately. And I'm like, hey, ¿qué pasa? And they're like, oh, you speak Spanish? I'm like, yes. Oh, you're good. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. This jail is run by the Colombians. You're going to be good here. He was like, you ever been in jail here? I was like, no, never. Oh, okay. You're going to see. It's a party over there. So I'm there, I believe, for the next 2 days. And December 24th, they walk me out of that holding cell, and now they start walking me down the block. I'm in the streets, accompanied by 5 police officers, walking down the street, going to the jail right next door. Now, as I'm walking, I hear a bunch of loud music, salsa music. December 24th, it's Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
It's a party. Get to the front door, the music's even louder. Bunch of guards there dressed in, fatigues. They open up the doors, everybody's, gringo, gringo. And I'm like, hey, yeah, the gringo speaks Spanish. So they're like, oh, you're going to be fine. Don't worry about it, man. where are you from? You know, everybody's asking. This young lady guard, she's like, don't worry, you're going to be fine here. It's a party inside. Man, I'm like, what? Where am I? So I sign a bunch of paperwork. They take some photos of me, you know, put me up against the wall, left, right, bam, bam. And then they go through all the stuff I had, the stuff that they didn't steal, you know, at the hotel. And now they're walking me down this tunnel. I'm walking down the tunnel, and I see at the end of a tunnel, sunlight beaming through the bars, and a bunch of faces, like, you know, people trying to look down the tunnel. There's like 4 or 5 people behind, you know, it's just light beaming through. So I'm walking, and then you see the people turn around, they're like, hey, it's a new guy, hey. So once I get to the gate, they open up, and everybody's like, yeah, fresh meat. And I'm like, oh my God. When they open up that door and I see all these people, I'm like, what? It's like a small village. You see like 3 huts over there, which I found out were stores. See some pool tables on the yard, like pool tables. See women dancing with men. They're dancing salsa. They got 3 4-foot speakers out in the yard.
This is the prison.
This is the prison. And they have, you know, they got bottles of liquor, got tables set up, people dance. It's a party. This is Christmas Eve and it's a party. So while I'm watching all this, you know, I'm like in shock. I'm in shock. And all of a sudden I hear, hey, white boy. And I turn to my right, and there's this white guy, blonde hair, green eyes. And I'm like, what's up? And he's like, you're American, huh? Come on, come with me, bro. Takes me. He's like, we're going upstairs. So I'm walking up the steps. I'm walking with this guy. Everybody's cheering. They're like, yeah. I got my little suitcase. Some guys are coming, trying to like grab my suitcase, but just messing around.
Right.
You know, not real. You know, they're just like, hey, like trying to scare you. And I was just like, what the hell's going on? Walk up the steps, and he opens up this door. And this is the cell where the guy that runs the jail lives. So they call him Caporal. His name was Orlando. So I walk in. Orlando's there, his wife, and his 2 kids. They got a TV on, watching, you know.
And this is an inmate.
The cartoon channel, yeah, inside the jail on the 2nd floor in cell 1. That was his cell. And I walk in, you know, she's cooking. I don't know what she was making, I forgot. The kids are there watching the Cartoon Network, and he's chilling on the bed with a cell phone. He's got like 3 cell phones on the bed as well. So I'm like, hey, what's going on, man? They're like, all right, tell me your story. So I explained to him what happened. They're like, all right, so obviously, you know, the kid gave you up, right? I'm like, yep, we know. So like, where is this kid? I'm like, I don't know. They didn't bring him with me, but, you know, I'm just here by myself right now. They're like, all right, don't worry. Eventually, they'll probably bring your friend here, and then you could see him again. I was like, all right, sounds good. So that's day 1. And now he introduces me to his family. You know, Alex is there, and he's like, white boy, I hope you're ready. Today's December 24th. It's a party. The girls next door are here. And I'm like, what girls? He's like, the women inmates. You can see all the women outside? They're all prisoners. But today, they're on this side, and we're partying, bro. He's like, come on. Orlando's like, bro, have a good time. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. Go with Alex. I go with Alex. Alex starts introducing me to all the guys. You know, I'm walking through. I'm seeing women. I'm like, wow, look at that. She's beautiful. Look at this. Kids running around playing soccer. Takes me to the cell. We open up the cell door. There's a party going on. They got plates of smoking. They're watching the music channel. They got videos on. I'm like, what the hell is this? So that was the first day, you know, entering the jail in Tulcan, which had me in complete shock. And not only that, but that party didn't end there. It went till 1 o'clock in the morning because it was Christmas Eve.
Right.
And, you know, Latinos, they celebrate the 24th, and they wait and open up the presents. Like kids will open up presents the 24th at midnight. Not like in the States where they do it December 25th in the morning when they wake up.
Yeah.
So over there, it's different. And 1 o'clock in the morning, they took all the women to their side, and they locked us all in our cells. And that's it. The party was over. Next day opens up, 6 a.m., back out. You know, I received a call from my mother that day, you know, and obviously she had spoken to the embassy. You know, she was going through it, man. She was in shock as well.
How old are you at this point?
At this point, I was 20.
Okay.
Yeah, I was fresh 20 years old. Yeah.
But I mean, this isn't the place you end up. Like how long? Like do you get a lawyer there?
So this is a small jail in the country. Now they take me there because that's where my case starts, right? As soon as I get in there, I'm asking, how does
this work?
Yeah, what is my case going to be like? What is the court system like? And everybody's just, me. I'm just like, they're like, oh, bro, here is just so much corruption. This kid got locked up for a joint, and he got 8 years. A joint with a gram, gram in a joint. He got 8 years. Yeah, but he got 8 years, and he got lucky. He got the 2 for 1. Like, what's the 2 for 1? Well, yeah, if they give you 8 years, you only do 4. So every year counts for 2.
Right.
And I was like, and we don't have that anymore? No, we lost that last month. I said, what? He's like, yeah, November 21st, they took that law away. And I got arrested December 18th. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh my God, just my luck. So finally I know people there. I'm like, who's your lawyer? This is my lawyer. All right, let me call him up. Called a bunch of different lawyers. They're giving me American prices, $7,000, $10,000, $15,000. So luckily we had some money saved up and also had a lawsuit that was pending before I flew down there, and was able to get some money and get a lawyer. Paid the lawyer. Now, what he was telling me is they're trying to make it out as like I'm the owner of this drugs, like I'm the top guy.
Right.
So
you're just a courier. I'm just a
courier.
Right.
So the other guy was just a courier as well, but from Colombia to Ecuador. Now, he's bringing it to me, so it's like I'm the owner, and I don't want to give anybody up, so it's mine. Now, the courier from Colombia to Ecuador is supposed to get 8 to 12, and the owner is supposed to get 12 to 16 on drugs. And when I'm hearing this, it's like depression. Like I just want to I'm inside. You're crying. You want to go crazy. You can't show too much emotion. You're in jail.
Yeah.
But it's like I was dying inside. At 20 years old, you're gonna throw away the key. 12 to 16 years for me was a lifetime.
Oh yeah, exactly.
It was a lifetime, and I hadn't even lived my life yet. 20 years old is very young.
Can I? The Colombians that are in the U.S. that were a part of this whole thing, do we ever hear from them again?
Yeah. I heard from them again. They helped me out in the beginning.
Okay.
They sent me like 20 cell phones. They sent me like luggage bags full of clothes. They took to my mother and stuff like that. But that's it. Just a one-time thing, and then I never heard from anybody again. Pretty much I'm dead to them. Once you're gone, out of sight, out of mind. Yeah. Right.
Not what they should have done, but probably more than most people would do. Most people just walk away and just.
Most people just walk away because also they're scared. Most people might just never answer the phone again because they think you might give them up.
Right.
That wasn't the case with me, but at the end of the day, they all forgot about me. Right. And that's a big point that I want to make. Here on my podcast and every podcast that I do is don't believe the lies that they tell you because it's never going to happen the way they say it will.
We're going to take care of you. We're going to get you a lawyer.
That's all BS. At the end of the day, it's going to be you on your own in jail or prison, and it's going to be your family suffering and your family paying the bills. That's it. That's what's going to happen.
So you eventually do get a lawyer. You had some money.
Got the lawyer, paid the lawyer off, and he's fighting for me, right? So I'm fighting with him, telling him, you got to try to get me at least 8 to 12.
Right.
Not the 12 to 16.
You're 20 years old.
20 years old.
Arguing for 8.
Arguing for 8 to 12. And I'm in shock at this moment because I'm around people, this guy's got a joint, 8 years. Another prisoner that was there did somebody, got 16 years and was paying 8, and he had already had 6 years in. So he had 2 more years and he was going to be out. And he somebody. So that just goes to show you how weird the laws are in Ecuador. It's just, there's no justice, right? We get the lawyer, he's fighting, right? Eventually, we go to trial, they find me guilty, and I get the 8 flat, okay? This is after a year and some change.
Right.
All right. Let me just rewind. Before I get sentenced, I'm in the jail, in this small jail in Tulcan, and I get this little money from the lawsuit or whatever, and I start buying things like pool table, the store, and,
Pool table?
Yeah, they had 2 pool tables there. I bought 1. And then they had 3 stores. We purchased one of those. So it's an income, right? Yeah. And then bought some coke, started bagging it up, selling it in the jail. So first run goes great. You know, obviously there's someone in the jail. I'm like, bro, let's start moving some stuff here. He's like, oh, I got somebody that could bring it in. All right, let's do it. We get this girl, she brings it in. We bag it up. Great. 50 grams goes real quick. I'd say, I don't know, 2 weeks. We go to get the second bomb in. She brings it in. We bag it up. We're taking her downstairs to the exit for the visits, and we're waiting at the door. And all of a sudden, you know, we just hear all these police walk in. And they're like, everybody to the ground, everybody to the ground. We turn around. They're like invading the patio, and they're taking all the visits out, rushing them out. And everybody's on the floor. They put us face down on the ground. They make sure all the visits are gone. And then they lift us all up. They're like, all right, everybody get up. Everybody goes and stands in front of their cells now. Everybody's running. Boom, 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 running to their cells. Get to the cell. They're like, all right, we need one person in the cell to stand in the door. Stand in the doorway, and the cops start going crazy inside, ripping out the mattresses, the clothes, everything. They're going through everything. Now, they go through everything. They didn't find nothing. They just made a mess. They leave. They go on to the next cell. And I'm thinking in my head, thank God. We're good. Now some young kid walks up. He had to be, I don't know, probably 18, 19 years old. And he asked me, he's like, did they check the cell already? I was like, yeah, they checked. He already moved to the next one. He's like, okay, I'm going to check it again. And he walks in. And as soon as he walks in, he just focuses his attention on the kitchen. So he's looking at the kitchen. We have everything like a normal kitchen. We got cupboards, you know, we got the stove. It's an electric stove, not gas. We got the mini sink, you know, everything there. He's looking, so he starts grabbing the cupboard, starts like trying to shake it, like moving the wooden cupboards on the wall, seeing if they're loose. When he did that, my heart just dropped. I was like, oh no. And then we had this little small wooden placard where we could hang the big like spoons and the big thing to take the fries out of the fryer. And he just moves it a little bit. He noticed it was like loose, and then he struggled to get this nail out. He popped it out. The thing just fell. Right behind that, there was a small hole like this where you could stick your hand in and go. And that was a stash. And as soon as it dropped, he just, you know, he started calling for the other officers. They came over, you know, cameras out. And then they film it before they even put their hands in. They're filming. They're like, all right, boom. They go in and they take out the bomb. They see this huge bag filled with bags of in them. So obviously they're like, all right, whose is it? Nobody fesses up. And I was
gonna say, are you guys telling me there's been in the cell the whole time? That's crazy.
Yeah. So they take us out. You know, they lock up the cell, and they have a construction crew coming the next day to fill in the hole, and then they break down the rest of the stuff, make sure there's no holes behind it, and they put everything back up. All right. So now I'm like, what am I gonna do? I'm talking. I'm trying to find out what's gonna go on here because no one told me anything. They just took the drugs. They took us out of the cell, and they just left. Now, I'm thinking like, oh my God, what is going to happen now? Then I think it was like 2 or 3 days later, the director of the jail calls us up, you know, everybody from the cell. So we get there and they're like, all right, who's going to take charge of this? Because, you know, it's either one of you or it's all of you. So again, I have to fess up, you know, it's mine. I'm not going to let everybody go down for everything. So told him it's mine. He said, all right, everybody else could leave. And I sat there with him. He was like, man, he's like, you're screwed. And I was like, why? He's like, do you not understand what's going on now? I was like, not really. So he says, you're going to get hit with internal drug trafficking. And that's 12 years. And I said, what do you mean 12 years? He's like, yeah. And that's on top of whatever sentence you get. They're going to stack it on. So if you get 8 and you're lucky, this is going to be 12. So you'll be doing 20 years. And I was 20 years at the time. So in my head, you know, my head's just spinning, thinking, I'm going to get out of here if I'm lucky when I'm 40. So that right there, you know, that day just turned into a nightmare. You know, I got, you know, went into like depression, didn't want to talk to anybody. It was just really bad. Horrible times for me. But again, something I brought upon myself, you know, just stupid, trying to sell some inside the jail.
Right.
And just got caught. Just unlucky.
You didn't get 12 years, right? Did you get an extra 12?
So I have to get a lawyer for this new charge. So
but you haven't even been charged for the first 8 yet. You're still hoping to get 8.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this is, you know, it's a long story. So now I call up my lawyer that I contracted for my original case, and I explained to him what's going on. And he's like, man, are you crazy? Do you know what you got yourself into? And I was like, yeah, now I know. They already explained it to me. What can we do about this? He's like, there's not much we can do. I mean, 12 is the minimum. And he's like, and I'm pretty sure that's what you're going to get. So in my head, I'm like, I just got to escape. I got to get out of here. I can't do 20 years in Ecuador, you know? So pretty much I'm like, all right, thanks a lot, you know. In my head, I'm like, we just got to go. I got to get out of here. So I start planning, start talking to my roommates, and a couple of them are down, right? So we got 5 guys in the cell.
This is nuts, bro.
5 guys are in the cell, and one of them is a guy from Spain, from Barcelona, but he weighed like 450 pounds. Big guy. So obviously he can't go with us if we're going to make some little hole in the wall. So the solution for that was this kid from Colombia that was in our cell. He somehow managed to get some drops that would put you to sleep. I don't know what they were, but it would make you go to sleep immediately. Like maybe 10 minutes after we would put it in his coffee, he was out like a light. So we made it a normal routine to every day after we got locked in our cell at 7 p.m., you know, we would, you know, make a sandwich, coffee, hot chocolate, you know, we'd have like a little snack. And there was always one guy that he always prepared everything. He would do the hot chocolate, coffee, whatever. And he knew to put the drops in this guy's coffee. So that's what we did. And we would do that, not every single day, but probably 3 or 4 times a week. We would do that. He would knock out and we would get to work. We were able to bring down this wooden cupboard and we would start cutting because we got a saw in that we paid for. And we would start cutting the walls. So the wall there, it was like, that jail's probably like 130, 140 years old. So this is like plaster. And if you get hot water, you know, you get in a little bucket and you start splashing it and you start hitting it with this, you know, little saw, or like we had like a Phillips head screwdriver as well. These little chunks would just start coming off and it would just start disintegrating. And we could actually wash this in the sink and it would just go. It would turn, basically it turned into like sand. So we cut the hole, you know, it took us, I don't know, I would say maybe 2-3 months to do it every day. We also had to put it back, secure it. And throughout these 3 or 4 months, we're also going through other searches, you know, several searches, because don't forget, we have the academy next door where they're training these police officers. And now they're bringing them into the jail I'm in so that they can go through and train and learn how to search and find things like drugs, you know, tunnels, holes, people trying to escape, guns, knives, whatever the case may be. So
how thick are these walls? Is this wall this is an exterior wall?
So the wall I'm going through is like the roof. So I'm on the 2nd floor of this jail, right? And the roof has, I would say, maybe 5 or 6 inches like this, right? And once we cut through that and we broke through, we were able to stick a mirror up. There was like a small hole, like you could put your hand in, right? And we were able to see up top, there was all like rebar, right? It was just a whole net of steel. So now we need another type of cutting device that cuts steel because what we had was not going to work. So we had to secure that back and we had to figure out a plan, right? Now, days are going by. We get another search. I think this was like the 3rd or 4th search that we had while we were working. And they come in and start ripping everything out and they find the hole. As soon as they rip that down and find the hole, they turn around and look at us. And they look at us and they just started beating us. They ran at us, started pulling out batons. Oh, you think you were going to leave here? All right. Beating us without stopping. I mean, it was like a good 5-10 minutes. All right. After that, they closed the cell. And then they all separate us, put us all in a bunch of different cells everywhere throughout the jail. That cell was closed for reparations or whatever. And basically they told me, you know, get ready because they're going to be shipping you out to the prison soon. Luckily, when I got there, there was people that had been there controlling the jails. Like I told you, Alex Whiteboy, Orlando, and they got transferred to the prison in Quito before I did. So while I'm in Tulcan going through all these, you know, drug trafficking charges internally and trying to escape, These guys were already in the prison in Quito, and I'm still in communication with them. We talk through cell phone messages and everything. So when they transfer me over there to the big prison, luckily I arrived there, and I have people that know me and people that are going to vouch for me or take care of me. And, you know, once I get to the big prison, they take you to the hole. So that was one of the scariest things in my life, walking into the big prison. Let me just rewind.
Because it's not a party.
No,
Right.
this is not a party. So this is the real deal. Like, although there were parties inside, but this was on a different level. So, you know, they find the hole. Eventually, they say, you know, we're going to transfer you to the bigger prison, and they take me. I go throughout the night. I believe I left 2, 3 in the morning. I get there early the next day, sunrise, 8:30, and we're walking into the prison. Now, the head guard is there and all his guards. They introduce me. Everybody's here to look at me. They want to see me. You know, they're taking pictures of me. They fingerprint me and all that good stuff. And they're like, all right, this guy tried to escape. Take him up to the hole. And when I'm going up to the hole, everybody's just kicking you, beating you, hitting you with batons. You're falling, you're tripping. And I have to go up 4 flights, all through steps. So I get finally to this huge tunnel, which has a gate in front of it. It's like the movies. At the end of the tunnel, there's this light like swinging back and forth. It's like flickering on and off. And it's just, it's cold, right? That's what I could remember. It was cold and smelled horrible. They open up this gate and they tell me, keep walking, keep walking. They're like pushing me down. I get to the end. There's a door on the left and a door on the right. And they open up the door on the left. They open up that door and I hear, turn on the lights, turn on the lights. Somebody that's inside. And I remember the spark that it made because there's no switch. They had to connect like some wires. It was like, zoom. I was like, what? And I turned and it's packed. There's like people sleeping on the floors. There's like 10 or 12 people on the floors. There's like 6 beds, concrete beds. Those are all packed with people. And to my right, there's the bathroom area with a hole in the floor to go to the bathroom. There's no toilet. And then inside there, it was like a sweatshop. The walls are sweating. It's so hot and humid in there. There's no ventilation. There's no window. There's nothing. The only window we had was the window from the door, which was about this big. And we could like communicate to the outside world and put a mirror out and see who's coming from down the hall. But besides that, there was nothing. So you're in there. Everybody's in there in their boxers, shirts off. Everybody's dripping sweat. The walls, like it's running. It's horrible. So once I realize where I'm at and I'm looking around, again, what do I hear? White boy? And I turn and look. I'm like, what? And there's this other American there. And he's like, you're American? I'm like, yeah, bro, I'm American. What's up? He's like, come here, bro. Makes a spot on his bed for me. I sit down next to him. He's like, you all right? Where are you coming from? So I give him my story. Coming from Tulcan, I tried to escape. And he's like, really? Oh, man. He's like, what do you think I'm here for? He was all black and blue. 2 black eyes. Arms had welts on them, like from bats or whatever. His legs, they were all black and blue. He was beaten. I mean, he looked horrible. And he was like, listen, I tried to escape too. He's like, I had a relationship with the psychiatrist here. It was going on for about a year. Nobody knew about it. And I finally convinced her to bring me in a police uniform. So I got the pass to go see the psychiatrist. We go in. I'm in the office with her. It's always private, doors closed. I change into the police uniform. She goes outside and she watches for when the shift is changing. Because there's like 20, 30 officers that are going to be coming in and 20 or 30 officers that are going out at the same time. So once that was happening, she opens up the door and tells me, go. He's like, I walk out, bam, and I just walk in, put the hat down like this, and I'm just walking next to everybody. He's like, I'm a cop just like them. And he walks through 2 of the main gates. He was already in the street. Now in the street, there's one last gate you have to go through. And when he goes out that gate, you're going down a hill and there's other police officers or guards coming up a hill. So as these guards are coming up the hill, they see his face and they grab him and throw him on the ground and they catch him. Because these were guards inside the prison. So they catch him and then they beat the living hell out of him for days. And I walk into this hole, calabozo, what they call it, and I meet him for the first time. Crazy story. He eventually becomes my friend. His name was Alex. He's from Queens, New York. And a little less than a year later, he actually manages to leave. He escaped with 18 other prisoners through a tunnel in B block in the prison we were at.
Did they catch him, or he?
No, never caught him. So that night,
So if you were to escape and get back to the United States, would they extradite you back?
I'm not sure how that would work.
Right.
I don't think so. I mean, not in those times. Maybe now. I'm not sure. But
Yeah. Okay.
in those times, I don't think so. He was American. He was born in Queens, New York, right? But he had family in Colombia. So I'm pretty sure he left there and went to Colombia. And after that, I never heard from him again.
Okay.
But
Do you know, like, so 18 people escaped. This
Yeah.
seems like a big thing. Like, do you know weeks coming up, like, these guys are planning to escape? Like,
so
what's
I'm about to drop a crazy story
Yeah.
for you about that right now.
Okay.
So the night prior to the escape, since me and Alex are boys, he lives in B block, I live in D block. So we can see each other from the gates from our blocks. After 5 p.m., everything's closed. So you have to stay inside your block. But you can still go to the front gate and like talk to somebody in B block or C block because you can see each other. So I'm in my cell that night just chilling, watching TV. And then someone comes, they're like, hey, Alex wants you downstairs. So I was like, all right. I run downstairs, boom, like, hey, what's up? He's like, yo, you want to come over and drink? He's like, we're having a party. I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, start hitting the gate. So I start banging the gate, bam, 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 until the guard comes. Guard comes up to the gate. He's like, what do you want? I'm like, Alex, I want to go over for a little bit, just, maybe a couple hours or something. He's like, no, we can't do it. And Alex calls me. He's like, hey, come here. So Alex is like, bro, come on. He's offering $5, $10, $20. I don't know, And this guy just didn't want to budge. He didn't want to let me through. So at the end of the day, Alex was like, bro, sorry, man, I tried. Yo, see you later. I'm like, all right, bro, later. See you tomorrow. And I leave, and I go back up to my cell. And the next day, when I wake up, everybody escaped.
Right.
It was insane. They went through a tunnel. So pretty much it's like this.
If you had gone over there and been in the cell, would you have not? They wouldn't have switched you back. You would have stayed there that night.
No, I would have stayed there that night.
Oh, man.
That's how corrupt it was. We used to do that all the time.
Oh, man.
Yes. We would have left. It would have been another movie. Crazy. But yeah, he left and all the other prisoners left. A bunch got captured and brought back to the prison. He never made it back. Hopefully he's okay and maybe he's watching this. Alex, I love you, bro. And
Reach out to me.
Yeah, reach out. We got those crazy stories to put on the pods. That was my first experience with an escape in the big prison when they all left. This is all stuff you could look up on on Google. It's there. I have clips I could send you as well. I tried to escape in 2005. I have the clips for that. I could send to you.
How so? But you're just being held in the prison. You still haven't been sentenced on the other. Have you been sentenced for the 8 years?
I haven't been sentenced, not even for neither case
Okay.
yet. So I arrived to this prison, right?
Oh my God, bro! I can only imagine.
I'm a sitting duck, just waiting for both trials.
I can only imagine the anxiety.
So yeah, anxiety was big, right? And what didn't help was I spoke to my lawyer about the internal drug trafficking case, and he told me, you know what, your best bet, I'm going to tell you right now, is that you become a drug addict, and we could pull this off as consumption. You're a drug addict. That's why you had all those bags. You buy it in bulk because you don't want to keep buying and buying. So you buy one big shot, and that's for you to consume. And he's like, but the way you look now, the judge is not going to buy it. So become a drug addict, get
Jesus.
skinny, do what you got to do.
Unfortunately, that's a pretty good lawyer, right?
It was a great lawyer. It was the best advice that he could have gave me. I took it. I ran with it. And at the end of the day, we got the 12 years knocked off.
Oh, okay.
Because completely, because I was sentenced to the 12 years of internal drug trafficking. So it's stacked, right? So eventually I got the 8 years. They had to come get me. They took me back to Tulcan for the sentencing of the original 8-year case, right? For the international drug trafficking. So I did, I believe, 2 trips back to Tulcan. And then I had one more trip for the internal drug trafficking case, and they sentenced me to the 12 flat. So I had a 20-year sentence for about 7 months. It was the worst time of my life. It was the worst time I had in prison. I dedicated myself to, just consuming drugs. I really just, I guess I wanted to die, but I just didn't have the balls to, throw myself from the third floor, I guess. I don't know. I sat up there and thought about it many times because, that young and, having to spend that much time in prison for me was just like insane. Right. And I miss my family. I miss the States. It was just such a big change for me.
It's just super depressing.
Yeah,
Because I can imagine if I was depressed.
Yeah,
I can. Oh my God, bro! How often could your family come see you? I mean, you did have a cell phone though.
Yeah, so I had a cell phone, and it was normal for us. Anyone could call me at any time on my phone. It wasn't an issue. In that prison, everybody had cell phones.
Are they even trying to get rid of them?
Some people, some guards are douchebags, and they want to come in and they want to grab your phone because they want to ask you for a ransom, right?
Right.
So I lived through that a couple times, being the new guy, but then you're not the new guy anymore, and you're not messing around. You're not paying anybody for no ransom. Right. The police is a different case when they come in at night, 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, and they do a search. They're taking your stuff. They might steal it, or they might take it and just, send you to the hole. You can't have cell phones, guns, knives, machetes, none of that stuff. Everybody has them in jail. Just depends if the guards, want to be an asshole or not.
What would they tell you? Like $20, $100?
Yeah,
get your
$20,
cell phone.
$30. And the time I was there would be like $20, $30. I'll give you back your phone. I'll catch you on the next shift. Something like that.
Can you have actual cash?
Of course. All you have is cash over there. Yeah. There's no commissary. So basically, the only means of getting money inside the jail is Western Union it to someone, and then your visit brings it in. So when I didn't have a visit, like the first days I was locked up, I would get the money Western Union to a friend of mine, and then his visit would bring it in and just give it to me. Obviously I'll be like, oh, here's for the taxi, here's for the favor, thank you very much. And then you got cash to buy whatever you want.
But if there's no commissary, you mean no commissary accounts?
There's no accounts.
There's no store, no commissary store.
There's stores, yeah. Everybody,
but the guys run them.
Anybody can have a store, yeah. So if you want, you can go into the prison, the big prison where I was at, and you have to buy your cell, right? So off the bat, you're walking in. Depending where they send me to D block, right? So I get to D block. They'll be like, all right, listen, we got a couple cells for like $400 or $500. They're gutted. So you have to do you have to remodel it. Or
any idea how insane
we have like $2,000, $3,000 cells that have everything. It's got a carpet. It has modified queen size beds. It's got a 30-inch TV. It's got a DVD player. It's got a hot shower. It's got a separation between the bathroom and the room side where you sleep. And it's got everything. It's hooked up to the max. And then we have C block where the big drug traffickers like Colombians and, a lot of foreigners that had money would buy their cells, $5,000, $6,000 cells, air conditioning. It's got ceiling fans, carpeted, marble floors. It was just insane. Things that you couldn't even imagine.
It's like a fucking real estate market.
Now that was in my prison. If you go to the prison in Guayaquil, and you're a mobster, they're buying 2 or 3 cells connected and they're knocking down the walls between them and they're making an apartment, right? Or they're making a nightclub. So when the prostitutes come in, they got the poles there and they're dancing like it's a go-go. It's a go-go bar. That's the way they do it, man. Yeah, it's crazy. So much corruption. You could do anything inside these prisons with money, at least back in the day.
The problem is it's such an extreme. Like you've got that, but then again, you just showed us videos of guys running around with machetes with this big gunfights, grenades. It's one extreme to the other.
Yeah, it's definitely extreme all around, right? It's just a different world. It's something that when I got out and I would tell people that I got close to, say coworkers or even other family members. They'd be like, what do you mean there was guns? I'm like, yeah, there was guns. I've been shot at. I've been stabbed. I've seen people get shot in front of me. Like, things were just crazy in there. There's no law, right? And there's so much corruption. And then there's people that have sentences that they're not going home. And they have no one that comes visits them. So if you got an enemy and there's somebody that wants to do harm to you and you don't want to pay another 25 years and you don't want to do that, you can hire someone and you pay them and they'll do the dirty work for you. They'll go, you can give them the knife or the gun, depending on how they're going to do it. They'll take care of your enemy, and then they'll walk up to the front gate and say, "Listen, I just this guy. Here's the gun or the knife," and they're ready to go to the hole with cash in their pocket because it's 30 to 45 days, and if you don't get transferred to a different prison, you'll just be back down on the same block. That's it.
Will the guards shake you down for cash? Like, will they steal your cash?
Very, very rare because the guards have to walk inside with us.
Right.
So, it's very rare that would happen. They might do it to like some new guy or maybe a foreigner, but
For the most part, for most part, there's some things that are off limits.
Yes. Yeah, that I've never heard of like them trying to rob a mobster or something.
Right.
It's not happening. And there's people with cells in there. You walk by their cell, they got stacks of cash on the table. I mean, It's crazy. They got people that have a cell that's just selling drugs 24/7. It's the trap house, and everybody knows it. The whole jail knows, and everybody goes there to buy drugs, and they're making a line. It's like a house. And there's 10, 15 people in line just waiting to buy their drugs. It's insane.
So for 7 months you had back to the timeline. So for 7 months you had this sentence
Yes.
of a full 20. Then you get it the 12 drop because your lawyer convinces the court, look, he's a drug addict. What are you doing? So they drop it.
Yeah.
So then what happens?
I became a drug addict. I lost all this weight, and then we went to trial, and we make it to the Supreme Court, right? So luckily, the girl that I showed you in the picture, her uncle was a judge in the Supreme Court.
Okay. Nice.
Now, we talk to my lawyer. He gets in contact with him. A fee is paid for us to have my case moved into his areas. He's going to handle my case, basically.
It's only right.
He's paying somebody off to get the case in his hands, and then he's going to take care of me from there. Now, luckily, and that's just luck that I have, we were able to do that, and I also didn't look good, right? I was a drug addict. I lost like 100 pounds. I probably weighed like $160, real skinny, and I was able to pull it off.
Right.
So we get that sentence dropped.
But at this point, how much time have you got? I mean, how much time have you been
am I in?
Yeah.
I would say going close to 2 years.
Is there good time there? Like, do you get
Not
time?
really. No. And at those times, I think it was like 3 days for every 11 months or something. I don't know. Once they took that 2-for-1 law away, there was no good time. And that's when they started doing riots to get back to good time.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, what are you thinking? This is not an expensive. I mean, this is not a wealthy country that can afford. It sounds good, but you can't afford to keep these people in here. You just doubled the amount of time that all these guys. If it's bad before, now you just made it extremely overcrowded. And if they were violent before, well, it's bad.
Extra violent now.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, you're 100% correct. So, like, I'm going to give you an example. When I got there was 2 people per cell, and there were some cells with mobsters that only had 1 person living in them. You could pay the director. You want to live by yourself. You bring in the construction crew. You take away that second bed, and you hook up your cell like an apartment, right? Now, 2-3 years in, there was already 3-4 people per cell. There were some cells where there was poverty, like B block. They'd have 7-8 people in the cell, because these are like the drug addicts, the hitmen, the sicarios, people that don't want them in D block. They don't want them in C block. So they send all the trash over to B block.
Okay. So what, I mean, are you, after you get the 8 years, are you appealing the 8 years, or it's just like, that's it, you're done. You're just hanging out.
Yeah. There's no appealing. Once I got the 8, that's it. I got the 8 and I'm running with it. Right. So now, just basically thinking how I'm going to live throughout this time.
6 years.
Yeah. It was rough, man. You just have to learn to live with all these animals in there, not accustomed to it. You might think you're about that life, but once you get with the big boys and inside of an Ecuadorian prison, you realize that life you thought you were about is much more bigger and broader, and it's much more dangerous. And, life doesn't cost a cent in there,
So how long did you stay in that prison the entire time?
Yes. So pretty much from December 2002, I stayed till September 26, 2008 in that prison. Just moved around to different blocks because I tried to escape with the tunnel that they caught me with. So they sent me to F Block, which was the maximum security 22-hour lockdown. And the first time I was there for 6 months in 2005. And then eventually I was sent back there for like selling drugs, and they said I was extortioning people and things of that nature. But, you know, I was just trying to survive like everyone else.
Are your parents sending you money every month? Or
Yeah, I would say probably every month. Yeah, they were helping me out throughout the whole jail, the whole sentence.
so you said at some point you got stabbed several times, but like how did that happen? What was the story behind that?
So the story behind that is around 2004, we purchased a cell on the first floor of D Block. And again, my plan is to try to escape. I mean, I don't want to stay there, not even the 8 years.
Right.
Right. And especially I've seen, you know, other people escape while I'm there. And I know it's doable. I know we can make it happen. So that's what we start doing. Comes up that there's going to be a strike, a riot. Right. They're going to do the riot with the visits. So it'll be a visit day, Saturday, 8 a.m. The visits start walking in the prison. And all the top guys let everyone that's somebody in the prison know, right? So they can alert their visits if they want to come in or not, because things get crazy. So, you know, everybody knows what's going to happen. And it's usually around 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon that once there's a lot of people inside, they'll send like the chosen ones that have like life sentences. I don't want to say life sentence because they don't hand out life sentences, but anyone that's like with a 25 or above,
Right.
they're going to send them with a gun. And then once the guards are opening up the main gate to let the visits in, this guy's going to pull out his gun and take over. All right. It's like he's robbing a bank. He's grabbing the guard, putting him to the side. Another guy's coming behind him with another gun, grabbing him. They're dragging him inside the prison, taking the keys, locking the door. And then they're bringing these steel barrels that we use as trash cans. And they're putting them up against these steel doors and lighting them on fire with all the trash and stuff inside. So the heat's welding these doors shut. And then nobody's coming in the prison.
Colby.
Shit is real.
That's well thought out.
I'm telling you, yeah, it's for real.
And so they're welding the doors shut, coming back in. They're not trying to escape, or is it
They're
just,
not trying
it's just
to
too
escape.
hard to get out?
We're not
that way?
escaping. Nobody's trying to escape because there's just too much police presence, especially on a visit day. There's hundreds of police officers around. What they want to do is just take over the prison, and they want to have the visits inside. So this way, they're not coming and shooting at us, you know, going crazy with the, you know, the gas and all that stuff. So they take over, right? They bring the guards inside. Guards are held hostage inside the prison. You know, we're strapping them to like the weight benches. We're strapping a gas tank to them. You know, there's people with gas tanks on their backs with the hose, and they light the flame up. And it's just, you know, we got helicopters over the prison. There's CNN up on the mountain filming us. My mother saw it live on CNN. Just, you know, movie stuff. It was crazy.
Do the guards in the prison have guns?
No.
Okay.
No guns. No. The guards walk in with nothing.
The inmates
So,
have
yeah.
guns.
Yeah, the inmates have guns. Guns, machetes, knives, grenades, you know, anything you could think of. Yeah, well, I'm telling you, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard stories just from guys that had been locked up, like in South America, or basically in the like some of these countries, like the Eastern Bloc countries in Europe, where they had, they have similar, nothing this bad, not this bad. Their conditions are just bad.
Yeah.
There's not guns and there's knives. There's always knives, but
Yeah,
there's not
always
guns.
knives.
It's
You
not to
can
this
manufacture a knife out of anything.
Right.
Yeah.
But and I've heard stories from guys that were locked up in South America. But you also, if you go on YouTube, there's videos that just are insane. I mean, like it's everything he's saying, and you're just like, this is.
Yeah, like I said, when I came back and I would, tell these stories to people, people wouldn't believe me. Some people would be like, bro, what movie did you watch? I just laugh it off. It is what it is. You don't have to believe me. I'm speaking the truth. These are facts. This is stuff that I've lived. I have proof of these things. And, if you believe me or not, it doesn't really matter. I'm just telling my life story, what I lived through, so no one else would have to live through it. You don't want to be stuck in a prison going through what I did.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, let's face it, like 98% of Americans have never even left the United States. And then there's another, like something like God, I forget what the percentage is of people who've never even left their state.
Yeah.
Like there's actually a percentage of people that have never left their state. Like it's not huge, but it's bigger than it should be.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the people that even so people who have never left the United States, they just kind of assume it's like similar to this everywhere.
Yeah.
You're crazy. It's nowhere near like this.
Yeah, I mean, in Ecuador, the prisoners ran the prison and the jails. I mean, the guards are just there to take count and make sure you don't leave. I mean, the big thing is they don't want you to escape.
Right.
So like, I tried to escape twice, got the living hell beat out of me both times. Got sent to F block. And just it was horrible. But
what happened? So what happened with the so they riot? They've got the doors welded together.
So they got the doors welded, right? We take over the prison. Now everybody's masked up. You can't tell who anybody is. Everyone's got their shirts wrapped around their face, holes just with the eyes, and there's people walking around with guns in hand. There's people walking around with machetes in hand. People walking around with bulletproof vests on. I mean, it's just something out of the movies. And you're walking around, there's cells lit on fire. It's like a movie. There's smoke everywhere. It's crazy.
And what are you doing?
So we're making the tunnel. I'm busy working. While all this chaos is going on outside, there's shootings, because it's hunting season. When the riot goes off, this is where, it's payback time. So even though there's visits inside the prison, the visits are locked in their cells. So like if I have my cell, my visits inside with me, I leave to go out, I'm putting my padlock on my cell. Every single prisoner has their own lock and key on him. So I lock my visit in the cell and I go out. We're going to another cell.
Who was visiting? Who's your visit?
I had several girlfriends throughout the time.
Okay.
Yeah. And my mother, I would never let her stay during a riot. But I had several visits with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's nuts. Okay. Yeah. So you're digging the tunnel.
So we're digging the tunnel, and like I said, this prison's even older because this used to be like, I think it was built like in 1890 or something like that. So it was like a quartel for like the army. So basically like an army base, and it was like on a mountain. So they had the full view of the city, and they could see if any enemies are coming. So it's so old. Again, hot water in the sink. These rocks are they're turning into sand, and it's all going through the drain. All right. Now the bigger pieces that we couldn't get rid of because there were some chunks that you're taking out from the dirt. Once you get down and you're digging this tunnel, you're coming upon like blocks and rocks and things you can't break through and things you gotta shovel through another way because there's this huge rock that you can't break through it. Those pieces we would take out, and at night we would go dump it in this huge there was like this hole. I would say it was like the gutters, like the drains here for like the rain, but it was just a huge hole in the patio that you could just go and dump it, and people would throw garbage in it, anything, and just disappear. So we're doing this tunnel, we're doing it. We went through the sidewall. So I had a refrigerator in my cell, right, that I would put up against the side wall. Now, when the guards would come in to do a search, they would come in with huge metal bars, and they would start banging on the floor to make sure that nothing on the floor was hollow, right? So I got that, and that's why we made the hole through the side wall. The side wall between cells is probably like 3 feet wide, right? So we started digging into the wall, and then we dropped down. Once we dropped down about 4 feet, again, this prison's so old, underneath it was like Swiss cheese. So we're digging, and we fell into a tunnel. So as we're digging, we fall into something that's already made, had semi-constructed like wood, like holding up the walls like Chapo style, right? No train, but the wood was there. So we take this tunnel and run with it. It was already dug out about 9 feet from my cell, and then we keep going. Now, walking the yard every day and you're here, that's where you live. You know how far it is from your cell to the main exterior wall, because there was 2 walls. So there's the one wall from the patio, and then there was like 3 feet, and then there was another wall. I don't know why they did it like that, but that's the way it was. So we kept digging and digging, and then we get word that the riot's going to end. All right. There's no more negotiations. They want to come in. They're going to come in blasting gas. They don't care if the visitors are there or anything.
How long had this gone on?
I think it was about 25 days when we got word that they were going to end. Yeah. So 25 days of, only the food that was there. I think after like 15 days, they shut off the electricity, right? So there was no electricity. The running water they cut off on us, and we only had water 3 times a day. 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., 12 noon to 1 p.m., and 4 to 5 p.m. And we would have to gather water. Like I would have the 2-liter bottles empty, and I would have like 15 or 20 of them to fill up water. So this way you can, wash the dishes, take a shower, go to the bathroom, all that stuff.
And visitors are agreeing to come in during the riot.
Knowing that this is this is about to happen.
Visitors want to come in because they want to protect their family that's in there doing time, because they know when the visitors are not inside the prison, the police comes in with everything. They're shooting grenade bombs at us. It's just insane. Yeah.
I mean, the whole time I'm thinking like, oh, is it 12 hours? Like, are they holding up for 12 hours?
No. This is weeks at a time. Yeah, and that was just that was the second riot. Yeah, I lived through 3 of them. It was insane. So the first one was more like a hunting season riot where there was just like 17. It was like I think it was like 4 or 5 days. The second one was the longest one that I believe it was like 25 to 30 days. And then the third one was a short one, and the police came inside with everything because someone threw a rock and hit a police officer up on the roof, and it hit him in the head, and he fell down into the patio and died. And as soon as that happened, the police came in with everything. I mean, they came in shooting rubber bullets at people, and the gas was just everywhere. I mean, you can't breathe with that. You get neutralized immediately. So
you're digging.
We're digging.
Are you under any of the walls, the exterior walls yet?
I'm calculating we're already at the wall. I'm thinking maybe 2 or 3 hours, and we're popping up like, Bugs Bunny out of the dirt. Boom, and we're gone. But we have to seal this back up. We have to clean up the cell. The cell's a mess. There's dirt everywhere, right? Because after the riot, all the police and guards come in and start searching everything. And if they come up in the cell and they see dirt everywhere, we're screwed. So now it's cleanup time. We start cleaning everything. Start cleaning, scrubbing, mopping. We have to get paper to put on the wall to make it, make the hole disappear. And then I got to put the fridge back and then wait for these cops to come in. So cops come in, they do the search, same thing, bam, bam, bam. They bang on everything, all good. Now, I lived in the cell with 2 people. One guy was from Poland, and the other guy was from Colombia. Now, the Colombian had prior knowledge of making tunnels, so that's one of the main reasons why we did what we did. And the other kid was just there, and he was a helper, basically, with the rocks and cleaning and all that stuff. He lived with us. He was a good kid, but he had a drug problem. Now, after the riot's done, we go back to our normal lives. We're just day by day in the prison, and that hole's there in the wall.
You're not digging you're not trying to do.
No, we're not doing nothing. I can't do nothing during the day because, or at night, because you never know when someone could come in, someone could hear something. Sometimes the guards are walking in the patio, maybe just like sneaking in through the side window, seeing if you're doing something. So there's nothing going on, no digging. Now, this kid has a drug problem, and he goes to B Block, and he's speaking to someone that owes him money. I mean, he owes them money. Now, I guess they took him and tortured him because he's not paying up, and he gives up my tunnel. He's like, listen, I know where there's a tunnel. Maybe you could escape. Just don't kill me, in my cell. We dug one during the riot, blah, blah, blah. The next day, I have probably 4 sicarios and this guy at my door. So this guy bangs on the door. I look through the little hole in the door. He's like, hey, I got to talk to you. It's funny because I never interacted with this guy. I knew who he was, but he's in a different block. And I see he's got all these sicarios with him. So I'm like, what's up? What do you want? He's like, no, open up. We got to talk. And my gut's like twisted. I'm like, what the hell's going on? I'm about to get over here. So I open up the door and they walk in. They got knives in their hands. Bam, sit down. Like, listen, we know what you got here. We want the cell. So I'm like, okay. I was like, listen, man, I've already got, about 4 years in. I know a lot of people. I just want to leave. I don't want any problem, but maybe we could work something out where you can come with us, right? And he's like, no, I just want the cell. You got to go. The guy wants to take me out of the cell. So listen, it's not going to happen, man. He's like, all right, it's not going to happen. He's like, you're going to die. So I was like, listen, man, I don't want any problems. We could all just leave. I mean, I don't see what the issue is. We can set up a day where we all go, I was thinking about, calling them with the guards, bring them over. It's a party, whatever. It happens all the time. So this guy wasn't having it. We end up getting into an argument, and some people overhear the screaming in my cell, and they come to the door, and these are upper like mobsters in my block, and they talk to the guy, they get out, and they leave. But now we're sworn enemies. So this is like do or die. You know, I'm nervous. I don't want to kill anybody. You know, I don't want anything to happen to me. But you know, I'm in my cell. I'm not bothering anybody. I just want to do my time and go. This guy tells one of the hitmen to take me out. So it's a visit day. I'm with my visit.
So bad, bro. This is so bad.
I'm with my visit and lock her in the cell because I got to go to the bathroom. I'm not going to take a dump in my cell. So lock her in. I'll be right back. And I leave. And I go to some other cell where it's a cell of people that smoke. Cell. So this cell has nothing. I mean, barely has like a cushion on the bed and just a bathroom. So I'm going in there just to use the bathroom and go back to my visit.
Does she kind of realize that there's an issue with you and
Yeah,
this
of
guy?
course. I tell her already off the bat, like, listen, I don't know if you want to come having issues, you know, getting pressed by some people. And she's like, no, don't worry. It's okay. So she came. I go to the cell, right? I'm going to go to the bathroom. Now, visit day is crazy. There's so much noise. Everybody's listening to different types of music. We got rap, salsa, merengue. You know, we got all these like mothers, fathers, daughters, kids. There's everybody. So imagine 2,000 to 3,000 prisoners plus all their visits. So right now the jail is bumping. There's music. There's everybody's there. There's a lot of noise. So when you open up the door and you close it in the cell, you can hear all that noise from outside. So when I'm in the back going to the bathroom, you know, I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I hear the door open. All that noise comes into the cell and I go to look and it's the hitman coming in already with the knife. And I'm sitting on the toilet. Immediately grab my pants, throw them up, jump up, you know, scared shitless, jump at the guy, stabs me once. We're struggling and I don't want to get back into the bathroom because where the bathroom was, you know, the tiles on the floor, it was wet because it's visit day. They took a shower. They didn't dry it. And I know if he gets me back into the bathroom area, I'm going to slip, I'm going to fall, and he's just going to finish me off right there on the floor. So I keep pushing, you know, we're struggling, and I managed to push him through the door. Boom. And when I push him through the door, you know, there's a bunch of visit, and there's a woman right to my right side, like 2 feet away. And I'm with a white T-shirt. I'm all bloodied already, you know, and I'm screaming because I'm trying to get him out of here. And as I push him out, he starts running. Everybody starts screaming. You know, there's women, there's kids. They're grabbing their children. They're running. This guy's running with a knife in his hand. And that's it. I look down, and I don't know how many times I'm hit. I just feel it. And then I go like this, and I see little balls of grease. I always had a gut. And when I look, the balls of grease are coming out of my gut. I got them in my hand. Right there, I think I fainted. I just dropped. Like, all the strength just came out of me. 2 of my boys picked me up. They're like, come on, bro, come on, you're going to be good. They drag me out to the main gate, and then the guards take me over, and the guards are dragging me down, and they're like, tell us who did this to you before you die. Just tell me who did it before you die. And I didn't say anything. I don't know, I guess I was in shock, but I didn't want to say who it was either. I don't know, I guess I just wanted to die, live by the law, die by the law, I guess, I don't know. So I get outside, and they put me in the guard's office. It's like their main office where they got all the bulletproof vests, stuff like that, where the police officers sit. And they're like, quick, man, just tell us before you die. You're bleeding out. I was bleeding so much, it was insane. And I kept on like grabbing my belly and looking at it, and the grease balls were just coming out. It was
What is it?
It's the grease from your gut. When I got stabbed, I don't know if you know, when you have a gut,
Yeah.
the gut is filled with grease, and grease are little balls. They're like white little balls. Now, I got stabbed in the gut, and I have this huge opening, and the blood's gushing out, and these little grease balls are just coming out. Okay. And I'm like, what the? And I just like fainted again. When I wake up, I'm in the ambulance. It's going like 90 miles an hour, right? And the girl I left locked in my cell is now in the ambulance with me. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing here? And I'm just, the ambulance is going all over the place. And she's like, oh my God, you're alive. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? And they're like, no, put the gas. And then they put something on my face, and I knocked out again. I get to the hospital. They're doing surgery, I guess, right? Whatever they were doing. And I guess they didn't sleep me with enough. And I wake up So I'm on the bed, the surgery room, and when I look up, I see them working with my intestine. I guess they're touching it to see if it's punctured. And when the nurse sees me, she's like, "Oh my God, he still is awake." And they put more, they give me that gas again, and I knock out. When I wake up, I'm all stitched up, hurting. I'm so sore, it's insane. And so I asked them for something for pain. They gave me some pills. And then like 5 minutes later, my visit comes in. She's like, "Oh my God, what happened?" So I explained everything to her. And I was like, "See, I told you not to come. Shit's crazy right now." And she's like, "What are we going to do? Where are they going to send you now?" I was like, "I have no idea." So that's it. They sewed me up. I was in the hospital maybe for like 2-3 hours. I'm like, "All right, kid, back to the prison you go."
Same prison?
Same prison. They walk me to the prison, and I get there, but they take me to the, it's called polyclinic. So it's like the clinic area where people who have been stabbed and shot are there in recuperation, right? We're all there recuperating. I get to the gate. They're like, "Yo, white boy, what happened?" Tell them the story. They're like, "Oh, bro, that's crazy. There's another kid that's been shot in the leg, one in the arm, another one's been stabbed." So I'm there for about 15 days, recuperation. They take me back down, right? Take me back down. I go straight to my cell. As soon as they open up the main gate, I walk in. To my right is B block, where the enemies are. Straight ahead C, and to the left is D, which is my block. I go straight to C, straight to D, which is my block. Immediately going straight to my cell, go in the stash and arm myself, because I'm like, now they know, because the people that were in B block are watching and they know I'm back. So I know they're going to immediately go tell whoever tried to do this to me. So I'm in the cell waiting. Nothing happens. A lot of people were coming to the cell. "Yo, white boy, you all right? You all right?" And everybody's coming in. What are you going to do? What are we going to do? People want to do things. So I'm like, "Listen, just let me think. Let me recuperate. I'm not even 100% yet. Just, make sure these guys don't come in the block, please. Just hold it down." So that night, I hear the keys jingling after the locked in, right? After we get locked in at 9 o'clock, I hear the keys jingling like maybe 10:30, 11. So I get up, I stick the mirror out the window, and I see that here come the Ninja Turtles, with the helmets, the bulletproof vest. It's the special group that's going to do searches. And I was like, "Please don't come here." The first cell they go to is mine. I immediately knew what was going on.
Somebody told?
Of course. So the guy that put the hit on me, since he didn't get the cell and I didn't die, he snitched it out. So they came, went straight there. As soon as they opened the door, they were like, "You gringo, stand at the door." And the guy came and took my fridge and just threw it. Once he threw the fridge, I knew it. They kicked the wall, and it was just like, it's paper.
Yeah.
So his foot went right through. He's like, "Oh, you thought you were going to escape? Gringo." And they just started beating me. And I'm all bandaged up. Still hurting, still got stitches in me. Bam, all the way up to the hole. 45 days. And they found the tunnel. They took my cell. They locked it up. And I lost that cell.
I was going to say, and you stayed in the same prison. They didn't move you to another prison?
Same prison. Now, check this out. I do 45 days in the hole upstairs on the 4th floor. After the 45 days are up, well, during the 45 days, I'm able to get a cell phone in the hole. And I talked to my parents, and they said that they were going to fly down, right? They were like, "We're going to fly down, see what's going on." All right. So when I'm in the hole, I think it was like around like the 30th day or maybe the 35th day, something like that. I get a pass. I'm thinking it's got to be my parents. Boom. I get out. They take me out of the hole, and I go like to the administrative area where all the offices are, and I see my parents in an office. I'm like, holy shit. Go and hug them. We start crying. Crazy. So right there, they're like, "Listen, they're going to transfer you to Guayaquil." And I was like, "Oh my God, Guayaquil is like where I was." It was probably kindergarten compared to Guayaquil. And I'm in hell. But Guayaquil is 100 times worse. There's shootouts, 8-10 hour shootouts every day. It's just insane. So they were like, "Listen, we're going to try to see if we can pay something to not get you transferred. We're talking to the director. So just, stay calm, stay good, try to stay alive." And that's what I did. Probably 2 weeks later, they confirmed, and I was going to get sent, instead of being sent to Guayaquil, to the maximum security over there, they sent me to the F block in the same prison. Now, the two guys I was with in my cell, the Colombian and the Polish kid, They send them to Guayaquil. Yeah, they got sent over there.
Oh,
I was lucky enough to have my parents. Thank you, Lord, for the parents that I had. I love you, Mom.
so how long are you in at this point? 4 years,
Yeah.
roughly.
4.5 years, something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
So how many times did you get stabbed?
Got stabbed 3 times.
Like Colby's face. He's just, this is insane. This may very well be the worst story, like, you know what I'm saying, that I've heard. So what happened? I mean, tell me, you kicked back, you started a store, and you wrote out the last 3.5 years, and it.
No, not yet.
Oh no!
So I get to F block, right? F block is the maximum security, 22-hour lockdown, right? 2 hours in the yard, and then the 2 hours that you're in the yard, it's mostly. So if you try to escape, you try to extort someone, you somebody, or you're a big profile case coming in from the streets and you're a dangerous person, they're sending you to this wing. Now I get sent there.
So we go to Santo Domingo, and I get put in this like holding, I guess, facility of the DNCD, which is the Drug Enforcement Agency. So again, I don't speak the language, so I'm trying to figure out what exactly is going on with this whole thing. So we go to the next morning. My wife at the time has family friends that are Dominican, and they are related to this lawyer in Dominican Republic. So it kind of automatically becomes he's my lawyer now.
Right.
So the district attorney, the prosecutor who arrested me, tells them to meet him at his office in Santo Domingo. So they put me in a car, and we all go to the district attorney's office in Santo Domingo. So I'm sitting there with my wife at the time, and my travel agent, and my lawyer, who I never met before, but he's sitting in the next desk with the prosecutor.
Is he like a criminal lawyer, or is he like a real estate lawyer?
They told me he was a criminal lawyer. All right, so I don't know. Again,
Okay.
I don't know at this point.
He
doesn't speak Spanish. He doesn't speak English either. So
that's good.
Yeah.
That's a good situation.
right, exactly. So we're sitting there. We don't know what the hell's going on. But after the meeting, we get like 2 minutes to kind of talk to him. We have a translator. We're trying to figure out what's going on. And they say that the prosecutor asked my attorney for $140,000, and this all goes away. I didn't have $140,000 at the time, or at least liquid. I didn't have it. And my lawyer basically tells him, go fuck off, and I'll see you in court.
Right.
So in the Dominican Republic, I don't know if you know this, but you're supposed to see a judge 2 days after your arrest, within 2 days after your arrest. So they bring me to this, I guess, Rikers Island. You know what Rikers Island is?
Yeah.
So they bring me to this, like, Rikers Island, which is like a temporary facility until you see a judge or until something happens. So I'm sitting there, and I'm hysterical. I don't know what's going on. Number one, I've never been in jail. Number two, I've never been arrested. So I don't know what's going on. I still don't know what I'm being charged with. So I go to this thing, and I'm thinking I'm going to be there for a day tops because I'm going to see a judge. I got arrested yesterday. I have to go see a judge by tomorrow, maybe the next day max. So I'm going to get out. I'm going to get bail, or he's going to dismiss it, and I'm going to get out, and that's what it is. So we end up going. I'm in this jail, this temporary jail, and I'm really uncomfortable. I don't have clothes. I don't have anything, and I can't communicate with anybody because nobody speaks the language. So now I go to court 2 days later, and the court system, or my lawyer or somebody, screwed up and don't have a translator for me. So they postpone it for another week. So now I'm going to be there for 9 days. And I thought that was the end of the world. I mean, that was the end of the world. I want to go home. I want to see my kids. This is not where I'm supposed to be. So I start freaking out, and they let my lawyer come see me, and they let my wife at the time come see me. And we go through that whole thing. So 9 days rolls around, and my ex-wife at the time ends up going back to New York. So it's just me and my lawyer now. And there was this guard there. He was really nice, and he was being paid by my lawyer to be nice to me or to watch me or whatever it may be. And I haven't heard from the embassy yet. My ex-wife called him, but I haven't heard from the embassy yet, so I don't know what's going on with that. So we finally get my lawyer gets a translator, and we have a lawyer, and now we have the court date, right? So we're going to court. I'm going home, right? You would think I'm going home. I mean,
I'm thinking you don't.
I thought I was going home.
Right.
So I get to court, and they say you have to stay in jail for 2 months, right? While we figure this whole thing out. And I am bawling my eyes out at this point. I don't know what the fuck's going on. I want to go home to my kids. I'm in a third world country. I don't know what's. I find out at this time that I'm being charged with international narcotics trafficking. That's my charge. And like international, and I'm thinking in the back of my head, international, that's big, you know, that's like
serious. That sounds serious.
Right. That's not right. That sounds like a problem. But my lawyer is telling me 2 months you're going home. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. We're good.
Hey, bro, you can't even arrange for a translator to be here.
Right.
Like I'm not feeling real good about anything you say at this point.
Right. But now when I get to court, when they sentence me to the 2 months, I see all these cameras there, and I don't know if they're for me or for another defendant or whatever it may be. But later on that day, I'm sitting in the jail, and I see my attorney on the television in jail blaming the prosecutor for planting ecstasy in the palate. I'm like, holy shit. I mean, first of all, nobody has, like, half my vendors are, you know, they're like ex-con, like they all went sober, you know, they all went straight. That's how the cannabis and vape industry kind of.
I was going to say the cannabis industry, like we've had several guys on that were selling and smuggling, and now they have legitimate businesses. Like they all went legit since they were already in the industry when it was illegal. Once it became legal, it was easy for them to convert.
So that's what happened. So I was like, none of them do X. You know, that's not what it is. So he goes on the news and says the prosecutor planted X in the boxes and this, that, and the other. Now that can't be good for me, you know. You know, now he's accusing a prosecutor of planting drugs in my shipment. You know, that can't be good for me on any front. So now I'm looking at 2 months, you know. So my lawyer's telling me, because it's in Santo Domingo, it's close for him to come visit me, and he's going to try to keep me in Santo Domingo and not bring me to a long-term facility for as long as humanly possible. Well, wouldn't you know it, 2 weeks later, I know I'm crying every day. You know, I'm upset.
You're clearly not. You're not cut out for this.
Right. I'm more of a Ritz-Carlton type of guy. You know, like, and so 2 weeks later, my name gets called to be transferred to like a real jail, like a real prison. And I'm freaking the fuck out. I'm like, what's going to happen? They're like, don't worry, your case doesn't get postponed or anything. It's just part of the process, right? So we take this ride on this bus to like a real prison. It was called Ohio 20. And again, I don't know what's going on. So I get off the bus and they start like an intake, kind of.
Yeah.
So they start an intake, and this guy, so in Dominican Republic, they're ranked by like stripes on the collar. So a regular guard is like a rookie is 1 stripe. A regular guard is 2 stripes, a supervisor's 3 stripes, a sub-director of the prison is 4 stripes, and a director is 5 stripes. So they tell me that this 4-stripe guy, the sub-director, is going to come handle me. Now, I was different than anybody, so I got a little more attention than most people would. So this guy comes in.
You're a high price. I mean, you're a high profile American who's been on the news multiple times.
I'm the only one.
Okay.
I'm the only American.
How many people are in this prison or this facility?
800. There's 800 prisoners.
Okay.
It's on the smaller side of what's there. So there's 800 prisoners in this one, and this guy's coming to come see me and kind of show me what's going on, or the best to his knowledge. So not only does this guy Montero come see me, but he brings one of the prisoners who speak English.
Okay.
He got deported from the U.S., but he did 14 years in the U.S., but he speaks English, so at least we'll get somewhere at this point, right? So he tells me that before I go into this guy's cell, I have to go into observation for 2 weeks. And that's just how the system works. I have to go into observation with like 30, 20, 25 people in one room, and they see how I am, and then I could go into general population. But the observation room was kind of like in the same general area as like the hole,
Right.
would be considered. So that was a little rough. So he put me in this maximum security room. And there was one guy who spoke English there too. But he was a real scumbag. We'll learn.
Right.
We'll learn. And he was doing a bunch of years also. So I go there, and now keep in mind, it's 3 hours away from Santo Domingo where my lawyer is, and they don't have apps where you could transfer money to my commissary. So somebody has to come to the jail to put money in my commissary so I could buy anything. Now, I'm not eating because, number one, I don't eat the food, and I'm too upset to eat. So I'm already starting to lose weight. When I got arrested, I was 323 pounds. I don't know if you saw the thing. Yeah. I don't know. You saw the CBS thing last night. They had my mugshot.
Yeah.
I was significantly bigger than I am now. I was 323 pounds. Now I'm
I
219.
realized you were that big.
Yeah. I was ginormous. So I'm starting not to eat, and because of nerves, because of anxiety, because of everything, I'm starting to lose a little weight, but that's okay. I could afford to lose weight at this point, So I go into this thing, and we gather that the only way to get me money is by somebody sending Western Union to somebody in the jail, and then somebody in the jail, my friend, somebody in the jail's family would have to come bring it to the jail to go in my commissary. Because again, there's no apps around. It's third world. So I do this, and my mother or my wife at the time send money, but I'm basically sending money blind to somebody I met a few times, so I don't know if I'm going to get it.
An inmate? Some inmate.
Yeah, some
inmate says, yeah, send it to my wife and she'll take care of it.
Right. That's basically how it went.
Yeah.
So that became a whole thing, but I learned that they have Oreos and they have chips and they have like cup noodles. So at least I could get something.
Yeah.
Because I'm not eating anything they're bringing me in their food. And I also learned that they have like a premium meal service that you could buy at the commissary every day they have lunch. So let me try that because I'm not eating the food that they're giving me.
What is the food that they provide there just garbage?
Not only is it garbage, but it's made in filth.
Okay.
So like there's cockroaches and rats and everything like that. So it's like, I've never been in an American prison. You have, I'm assuming, you have. So I would have to say jail food's bad, but it's associated with your country. But this is jail food for me when I've never been in prison, but it's not associated with my country. So even if it was a shitty burger, at least it was a burger. You understand what I'm saying? This is rice and beans when I don't eat rice and beans on the outside to begin with, but this was the shitty version of rice and beans, you know? So I'm not eating anything there. And now I'm living off of cookies and ramen and whatever there was at the commissary. So that at least I have something. And the guy ends up taking the majority of the money I send him and just stealing it, right?
I mean, is he telling you he's going to take the money?
No,
or is he
he's
just
not
saying,
telling me. He's just saying this is.
They sent $200,
right?
But your family's saying we sent $400,
right. And not only that, the conversion rate, and you got to pay somebody to go get the money and bring the money to the prison, and this, that, and the other. So that's where we are. So I go to Montero, and I tell him, put me in general population. I need to at least get outside and have, some sort of I need air. Because I was walking, as much as they would let me walk in the first prison, I would walk because it was kind of clearing my head. It was my only time to kind of think to myself.
Right.
And I knew that in the main area in general population, people were getting phones. There were illegal phones, but there were phones being snuck in by guards or whatever it may be. So I knew that at bare minimum, I would be able to buy a phone in general population. So that he said, all right. He said, go into general population. He puts me with this guy, Roy, who he's going to basically carry us out through the end of the story because he was my only, even though he was a career criminal, he was my only kind of salvation or way I would be able to communicate with everybody. He would kind of show me the ropes.
Right.
You know, he was told by Montero, and he worked in the prison. So he was like, he did food service and he shined people's shoes, and, you know, like the guards' shoes. So he kind of knew the ins and outs. And he was there for 4 years at the time or 3 years at the time. So he would show me the ropes. So I moved to Roy's room. Now, there are 4 buildings in general population, and building 3 was where Roy was. But I learned later that building 3 was the worst building because, like, it was like the building for bad kids, you know? But they had to put me there because Roy was there, and Roy didn't want to move, so I had to go there. So I go to, they offered to put me in maximum security, which was in one of the buildings, but in maximum security, you can't really go outside. But I would be safe and protected, but I didn't want to do that because I wanted to go outside and I wanted a phone. So I said, no, put me in Roy's room, and I wanted somebody that spoke English. So I get to Roy's cell, and the buildings are very third world, you know, like very third world. There's cockroaches everywhere, and it's just concrete, but it's dirty and old. Well, the story behind it is the U.S. gave the DR several $100 million to reform and update this prison. So the guy who appropriated these funds stole these funds.
Right.
And actually was in this prison also for a short amount of time. So it was very third world. They didn't have any water. They didn't have running water for 10 minutes a day. They only had running water. They would turn it on, and
Jesus.
if you didn't shower with the Dominicans, the 40 Dominicans on your floor, you had to preserve water for later to take like a bird bath, like with gallons,
Right.
you know?
I've been using Mando's whole body deodorant, and let me tell you, you can use it anywhere. Pits, balls, thighs, and even your feet. Mando's powered by mandelic acid, so it stops odor before it even starts. It blocks odor all day. I'm talking 72 hours. I love the scents too. My favorite is bourbon leather. It smells amazing. You can choose from other fresh options like Cloverwood and Mount Fuji. And the best part, no baking soda, no parabens, just clean, safe deodorant for your whole body. I've added Mando to my daily routine, and honestly, I feel fresher and more confident. It works way better than just showering alone. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid deodorant stick, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. You'll get 40% off your starter pack if you use code COX at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Once again, that's shopmando.com and use the promo code COX.
So I chose to find gallons of water, empty gallons, and I would shower later. You know, good.
That's the picture with all the empty gallons of, or like milk jugs.
Well,
they look like milk jugs.
Yeah, they were like gallons or half gallons or buckets. But I couldn't. But not only you couldn't shower, you had to preserve water to flush down the toilet because the toilets weren't flushing. They had no running water. I mean, they put on the water for 5 or 7 minutes at 6:30 in the morning, and then at 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, that's what you would get. So, and water wasn't every day. There was every 2 weeks the water system would go out, so we didn't have water for days sometimes. So I knew that now I had I had a shower by myself. So we would gather water and we would do that whole thing. So I figured that out. My friend Roy got me a phone. Figured that out. Roy was nice to me, so he said, he was round number 2 of send my sister money, I'll get it to whoever we need to get it to.
Right.
So there was 2 economies in the prison. There was the illegal economy, right? And there was the legal economy, which was the commissary. So I needed money in both economies because I had to buy my phone. I started smoking because I didn't have any vapes, so I started buying cigarettes. And there was the legal economy with the commissary, and if I didn't get money deposited in the jail, I needed to find out how to get tickets because they didn't have cash, they had tickets. So every Tuesday, whoever's family member would go to the prison on Sunday, visit you, put money in your commissary, and then on Tuesday they would hand out the tickets. So I had to find out how to get tickets. So subsequently, the people who sold drugs and the people who sold phones and cigarettes, they had tickets because they were vendors, right? So the smart thing was to find one drug dealer, one vendor, having a relationship with him, get him the money, and on Tuesday, whatever money I didn't spend on cigarettes and my phone or buying drugs for doing favors for me, I would have left over so I could buy food at the commissary. Makes every sense. Everything seems simple, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I first got to general population, I don't know if you saw the picture, they had everybody carried around these big machetes. You saw those? I'll show you a picture.
Okay.
And there were these machetes that they would break up the beds, the bunk beds, and they would file them down and make machetes, and that's what they would walk around with. And everybody's doing drugs and this, that, and the other, and buying them from. They would have two ways of smuggling these drugs in. There was one, crooked guards, and 2, they would throw these like wrapped balls over a fence, like really, really like down and dirty type of thing, and they would fish them with like fishing, like little string, and they would fish them and bring them in the building. So at least I had cigarettes and a phone. I could call my kids, I could call my wife at the time, and I called my mother and a few friends. So I got that, and now everybody was kind of fascinated with me because I was the American, but everybody also thought I was rich. No, I always had a decent living and a good business. I supported my household, but by no means was I wealthy, but
Right.
to Dominicans, I was the wealthy gringo. That's what
Right.
it was. So not only was everything more expensive to me, but everybody was going to try to take advantage. They picked up something from me off the floor. I had to buy them, I had to buy them drugs, or I had to give them something. Nothing was free,
Yeah.
And now I'm scared half to death because I don't speak the language, and the only person that I could really communicate is Roy, and Roy works most of the day, so I have to figure out how I'm going to communicate with these people. So I have my phone now, so I have Google Translate. But the problem with Google Translate is 60% of the inmates don't read or write. So now I'm really screwed,
Right. They're probably not speaking proper Spanish anyway.
No, it's very slang. It's very slang Spanish. I'm trying to pick up some sort of Spanish, very basics. So as I'm learning, I'm really keeping to myself, and I have my phone, so I'm on my phone a lot. I'm just playing on my phone a lot, but they were illegal phones. So now every time a cop would come in the building, one guard was assigned to each building every day, but every time a guard would come in the building, the building had, like, they had calls. They would scream out Leo if they came in the building to put everything away or hide the drugs or put the phones away or whatever
Right.
it may be. So I would have to find somebody that would take my phone, because if they caught you with a phone or drugs, you were going to the hole.
Right.
And that I didn't want that to happen, because this was already bad. So I would imagine, I don't even know what the hole was all about.
Right.
And the hole is not like anything you did wrong, you went to the hole. But the guy who has a phone should be treated differently than the guy who just stabbed somebody. But that wasn't the case.
Right.
So they were all in one spot. Just like when I was in the cell, I was sharing a cell with 2 guys convicted of murder doing 30 years. So there was no separation.
Right.
But what you also have to understand is that 60% of the inmates are preventative. They're pre-trial. So 60% of these people
Haven't been convicted of anything.
haven't been convicted of anything, but they're all criminals, you
Right.
know? So now I'm sitting waiting for my 2 months, my 2 months to come up. I have like a month left. I'm trying to learn what was going on. I'm losing weight like crazy because I'm not eating. I'm living off of cookies and potato chips. And my lawyer comes, visits me once. And at this time, my marriage is going through some trouble. Right?
You think?
Right. My marriage is going through some trouble. And it seems like my wife at the time is looking for a way to get out.
Right.
So she even starts limiting how much we're talking. And her stepfather, she was foreign, so she had a adopted family. That's a whole nother story. A adopted family in the United States. And my father-in-law starts talking to me and basically tells me that my wife at the time really didn't want to talk to me much. And she's like starting to gather my assets. She's starting to take money out of my bank, my business account. She knew all my PIN numbers and stuff like that. So she's starting to hoard my money, starting to sell my, stuff in my office, and she's starting to sell furniture, and she's starting to kind of like transition to move out of the situation. So I get a call from my father-in-law one day, and in my ex-wife's family, it's like a hierarchy. So they say jump, you say how high. No matter, it doesn't. I'm 40 years old. I'm 40 somewhat years old, 42 years old at the time, and that's just how it worked. They had 4 or 5 kids, and you didn't breathe if you didn't ask them. That's just how it was. It was very strange. So now what you have to remember is my lawyer is their family friend. So whether or not me and my wife stay together, I have to deal with them because they're my link to my attorney.
Right.
And so now my father-in-law is telling me that my lawyer is only going to speak to me through them. And
What?
Yeah.
This is my lawyer.
Right. But I don't have any out on this because I don't have another lawyer. My mother just got diagnosed with cancer the day after I got arrested. And I'm trying to keep, not involve her as much, even though she's calling. I'm speaking to her every day. I'm crying to her, and she's calling them, but that's kind of how it was. So I sold my mother on the idea, all right, just let them handle it type of thing. What are we going to do if they don't, So my father-in-law calls me up one day and he starts yelling and screaming at me. So supposedly my ex-wife hacks into my social media and sees things that she shouldn't have, right?
Okay.
And now we're getting divorced.
Right.
Okay. And we're not speaking anymore. Me and my wife are not speaking anymore. My father-in-law tells me this. We're not speaking anymore. And so now I'm talking to my father-in-law who hates me, right? That's the only way I could talk to my lawyer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my father-in-law hates me. I don't know the language. He's my only link to this, but he made a promise to my mother that he will stay involved. He was doing me a favor and staying involved to make sure I get home. So things start getting really tense really quick, right? My phone gets stolen and held for ransom. And every day it's just another thing with the inmates, with my father-in-law. And I am just hyper anxious at all times at this point. I don't know what to do. My lawyer comes, visits me, and now I have Roy. So now I have Roy who speaks English and Spanish. So at least I have somebody kind of on my side that could kind of translate. So I go up to my lawyer when he comes to visit me finally, and I say, my father-in-law is telling me I can't speak to you, and I can't have any direct communication with you. And that makes me feel really uncomfortable because me and my soon-to-be ex are going through a divorce. You know, so could we please figure that out? Don't worry about it. Message me directly. We're good. Okay. So I message him directly, and who do I get messages from but my father-in-law? Well, you know, Johnny called his cousin, his niece, and they were on the phone, and he said that you were messaging him directly, and you can't do that. So I got to the end of my rope. You know, I'm at the end of my rope now, and I don't know what to do. So we have to figure this all out. So I start calling other lawyers. And the guard, remember the guard I told you about that was really nice to me in the first jail? He told me about this one lawyer, Santana, that fixes these problems, you know?
Right.
So I message Santana on WhatsApp through translating, you know, through translation. And Santana says that, now I sent the first lawyer already at this point, I sent him 30 grand. My mother borrowed money. I had a little bit of money that my wife allowed me to take, you know, and sends him 30 grand. Now, I don't know, to this day, I don't know if my father-in-law got a piece of that. I don't know how much got to the lawyer. I don't know anything. But that lawyer also was very politically motivated, I come to find out. And that's why he went on the news and that whole thing. So I'm talking to this guy, Santana, over the next week, and he's doing his due diligence. And he said, Mike, 50 grand, I'll get you out. I'll get you out on your next court appearance. What the fuck am I getting 50 grand? You know, I'm not, I have no money. My ex-wife isn't going to give me anything. My mother doesn't have any money. She's dealing with cancer. What am I going to do? So I have my phone. So I start calling people to see if I could raise money. I would think the vendors that had stuff in the pallet, they should contribute, right?
Right. You would think they would feel bad, like, hey, I think we obviously got this guy into a jam.
Right. But they're not picking up my calls.
Right.
They're not answering. And these are people that I did business with for 10 years.
Because they're thinking they're going to get in trouble.
Well, not only are they thinking that they're going to get in trouble, but they're like, I have my own life. This guy's in jail. Fuck him.
Right.
You know? But some of these people are at my wedding. You know, like this wasn't, I traveled the world with these people for 10 years. You know, this was my family, you know, my extended family, you know, that we went to each other's houses and we hung out and we did the whole thing together. So I would think that, you know, each one at bare minimum would say, here's 5 grand, you know, get the fuck out, you know, but they weren't picking up my calls. So my mother had to kind of beg and borrow from people that she knew. And one day, my father-in-law calls me up and starts a big argument with me. And at this point, I have Santana on deck. He's ready to go. And something just snaps in my head. And I start fighting back with my father-in-law. Because at this point, I'm a punching bag for him because I'm scared. But now I have a backup, so let me fight back a little bit. So I fight back, and I basically said, look, I don't want to have anything to do with you. Leave me alone. I'll leave you alone. Whatever. It's fine. You don't want to talk to me. I don't want to talk to you. I'm good, you know? So I said, I'm getting rid of Johnny because this is not working. Johnny's first lawyer.
Yeah.
So for some miracle of God, we get the 50 grand to send Santana. My mother borrows. She asks friends, and she asks all these different people, and we've raised the 50 grand for Santana. Now, getting Santana money is also a problem because I don't know if you ever wired to DR, but when you wire to DR, it's not instant like now. It's not overnight. It's 2 weeks, you know? So we're sending Western Unions to this guy, Santana. But you can't send $50,000 in a Western Union, so you have to have 30 people send $1,000 each, you know?
Yeah.
So my mother's trying to find different people to send wires, and we're going, it's insane what's happening. So we finally get Santana the money. Now, my mother also made a trip to DR and, the whole thing. So my court date's coming up, and I'm like, this is awesome. I'm about to go home. It's been 2 months and change. I'm going home, So I get to court. And now when you go to court from Ohio, you get a bus, right? But in America, that bus that transports you is told that they have to be on, it's taking extra measures. I'm assuming, again, I've never been in jail in America. It's taking extra measures that you're on time and you're ready for court. Well, it's not like that in DR. It's whenever the bus gets there, it gets there. And if you're late for court, you have to postpone, and that's just what it is.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Is this a regular bus? Like this isn't like a transport owned by the DR?
No, it's a transport, but again, the Santo Domingo is 2 hours away by bus. There's a lot of traffic, and sometimes it runs late. That's what it is. Okay. So in the meantime, the embassy comes to see me while I'm waiting for this first court date. The embassy comes to see me, and I see the embassy, and I'm so relieved to see the embassy because they speak English, and I see an American, so they bring an American who works for the embassy, and they kind of bring this intermediary. And my intermediary was this guy named Jose. And he spoke English, but he was Dominican. I think he was dual citizen. And they basically explain, I'm crying to this guy, and I'm telling him, please help me. This is the story. It's very apparent I wasn't trafficking drugs. I was holding an event. I've done these before. Please help me. We can't do anything.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We can't do a thing. They bring me this little hotel soaps, and they bring me deodorant. And I said, take your soap and shove it up your ass, man. I can buy my own soap. Right. I need your help, So I find out that the embassy can't do anything, and now I'm waiting for this guy Santana to pay somebody to get me out.
Right.
So we get to the court. Santana's already gone. My bus is 2 hours late to court, and my next court date was postponed for, I want to say right in mid-November. So now it's 2 months, so it's September, right, from when I got arrested, and now I'm here another 3 months, and I am beside myself. I'm beside myself. I'm hysterical. I don't know what to do. And my lawyer's not there, so I don't even know if somebody just stole $50,000 from me.
Right.
So I call my lawyer when I get back to my cell, and he tells me I didn't want that judge anyway. So I'm happy it was we made sure it was postponed.
Sounds good.
Sure.
Yeah. But I gotta sit in prison.
Right. I gotta sit. Couldn't you get me bail? So now I'm stuck for another 2 months. So my mother makes arrangements to come. Now, I'm an only child. My mother's fighting cancer, but my mother can't come to DR for an extended period of time until she finishes her chemo, right? So she starts making plans, when am I going to finish chemo and this, that, and the other. So I'm waiting. And in the interim, my mother contacts my father, who I haven't spoken to in years and years and years, and tells him the situation. So now we're just waiting. I'm starting to talk to my father again after years, and we're waiting. 2 days before, so Santana tells me, we have the deal. Everything's set. Next court date, you're going home. I paid the money. Everybody has their money. The district attorney has his money. The judge has her money. And you're going home. Very simple.
Okay.
Right? The case is going to be dismissed. 2 days before I go to prison, I get a call that Santana dies.
I fucking knew it. I was going to say, was this guy die? Does he get sick? Does he?
Yeah. He drops dead. So I don't know what the fuck I'm now. Do I still have the deal?
Right.
Or do I still have the deal and I just got to go through the motions of going to court with somebody? Or do I not have the deal? Is my 50 grand gone? I had to beg and borrow to get the 50 grand. What am I going to do? So we go to court and now we have to postpone it. But you would think that you postpone it for 2 weeks, tops. I get another lawyer. We could go through the motions, and then I could go home. Right? So they don't postpone it for 2 weeks. They postpone it for 3 months. Now I'm in jail for Christmas.
Right.
And I'm literally screaming at the judge at this point in jail. I'm screaming at the judge in court saying, I don't want to be here for Christmas. I did nothing wrong. I signed for a package that wasn't even mine, and I want to go home. Could we please move it closer? Those are the dates. So now I have to go to court January 15th. So again, we don't have any idea who's going to be my next lawyer or where the money's going to come from. But my mother starts talking to my father, and he runs a successful business, and he says, I'll free up 50 grand for you to get a lawyer. And we start interviewing lawyers. Now, during this time, my mother got special permission from the jail to come to the jail and visit me every day. She books a trip for 6 weeks to spend Christmas and New Year's, Thanksgiving with me, just so I have something. And now we have to find another lawyer. So it's good that she's there. So her friend's married to a Dominican who has a cousin in Santo Domingo who's driving her around. She hires a translator. So she's paying money, all this money to people that she can't afford, number one, but she has to do it because she has to get me a lawyer and she has to come. She's not going to drive in DR, So she has a driver and she's getting me a lawyer and we're interviewing lawyers and we're doing the whole thing. And while this is happening, it was like the 4th or 5th day that she was there. I go upstairs and visit her and I see these guards and they're all dressed in black and you could see the maximum security guards. And I've seen them before. They did maximum security. They were the people in charge of maximum security. And I didn't pay any mind to it because they were always there anyway. And I say hello to them and they say, what's your name? I said, my name. And he goes, come with us. And they cuff me. What the fuck? What did I do? I said, I'm going to see my mother. Mm-hmm. So they cuff me. And while this is all happening, my mother and I are writing letters to everybody. We're trying to contact congressmen and people in politics and whoever we could contact, the news, whoever we could contact to shed some light on this, to help me get out, we're trying to contact. So they bring me to my cell and there are 6 of them with me and they're fully blacked out, and they mean business. These guys mean business. These aren't like a regular guard, These guys are mean business. So they're tearing apart my cell. And they're at, where's the phone? Where's the phone? Where's the phone? So I knew that I always had to bring my phone. I had to hide my phone when I wasn't in my cell because, just in case they said Leo, my phone had to be away and I had to leave it with somebody I trust. So I established a really good relationship with one of the drug dealers on the next floor up from me. So I brought it to him.
Right.
So my phone was in my room, so it was safe.
Right.
So they're tearing apart my room and they're asking me for the phone, but they can't find the phone. I said, I don't have a phone. There's no phone here. So they don't know what to do. And they bring me to the hole, but they don't put me in the hole. They put me in observation, the room that you're supposed to go to when you first get to the jail.
Right.
Because it's a little more mellow than the hole. So I find out that I'm there because one of the letters, you know, Chuck Schumer?
Yeah.
So I hear that one of the letters I wrote to Chuck Schumer or his office. And you would think that an American writing a letter from a prison that doesn't have a record or anything, you would think they would kind of keep that confidential. But supposedly that information got out to the prison, and the prison knew I had a phone because the email was sent to Chuck Schumer's office from my phone.
Oh, okay.
So they knew there was a phone, but they didn't know where it was because it wasn't in my room. So now I'm in observation. And I don't have a lawyer, and now they have one phone floating around there, but it's like an old Nokia, you know, that was the prison phone that we could kind of share.
Right.
So I could make 2 phone calls a day. You know, that's what I got. Or 3 phone calls a day. They weren't long phone calls, it wasn't my phone. So I'm calling my kids once, and I'm calling my mother and father twice because we have to figure out what's going on with my lawyer. So we get a couple lawyers to come to the jail, and there were these 2 lawyers that I was boiling it down to. One was this like Fifth Avenue type of lawyer who had an in-house, one of the partners spoke English, one of their clients were Pfizer. You know, they were a Fifth Avenue lawyer, very expensive, but it seemed like they knew what they were doing, right? And then there was this other lawyer who was younger, and he brought his friend who spoke English, who was an English teacher, but he was younger, but he understood my case.
Right.
He understood that it wasn't even real weed, number one. You know, it was like hemp. It was legal in my country. It went through customs. It was nothing. You know, it was nothing. It was insignificant.
Right.
So he understood that. So I liked him, but I knew he had the experience, you know? So my mother and father take it upon themselves to hire the Fifth Avenue lawyer because that's where they think I'm going to get the better defense. But I wasn't crazy about the Fifth Avenue lawyer because every time I would message him, it kind of felt like I was bothering him, you know? And he was like, and I was nervous. So I wanted to communicate with my lawyer, you know? So, and meanwhile, the other lawyer, the younger guy, he would talk to me all day. Are you okay? Could I bring you anything? You know, like that type of thing. But the other lawyer was like very reasonable in price. So I was like, let me continue to talk to him. If he wants a little money, I'll even get it for him, you know? So now I'm going through the motions with this Fifth Avenue lawyer, but I get introduced to this lady. So now I'm 3 lawyers in, 4 lawyers if you count the younger guy. I get introduced to this lady through an inmate that says she has the right connections, you know? And she tells me that for 10 or 12 grand, I could get out. You know, I could get out on my next appearance. But she doesn't want to argue my case. She wants to be in court so the judge sees her, but she doesn't want to argue my case. So I'm thinking about this too, right? Now, during this time, one of the letters that my father wrote, I actually wrote it. I find an email address for the president of Dominican Republic. And I write an email and I tell my father, send this email so it doesn't come from me.
Right.
So he sends it, and I'm out of, my lawyer pulls strings and gets me out of punishment area, gets me out of observation. I was there for 6 days. And I wake up one Sunday morning and they tell me that I have a visitor. My mother already went back. They tell me I have a visitor. I said, who the hell is visiting me on a Sunday? You know, it's not the embassy. They don't come on Sunday.
Right.
So I go upstairs and I see these 2 guys. They introduce themselves to me as colonels. They're colonels that are right under the president of Dominican Republic. They have my entire file.
Right.
But they don't speak English. But they have a phone, so I'm using Google Translate. So they tell me, I tell them the rest of the story, and they say, we're going to see if we could help you. But thank God, thank God. Maybe you could help me. You understand what I'm going through.
And they say for $50,000.
No, they just say they're going to try to see what they can do. And they leave. I am never to hear from these people again. Never.
Okay.
Now, I hear a couple different whispers about why that happened also, but I never hear from these people again. He's up for re-election. So I don't know if he's doing anything or not doing anything, but I'm getting nervous because I haven't heard from him. And I had my mother write an email to him, and there was no correspondence. So now this lady tells my mother for 12 grand or whatever it is, she's getting me out of prison. So I said, we have 20,000 left in the fund because we gave the Fifth Avenue lawyer 30 and we had 50, and now we have an extra some money. So let's send this lady $10,000 so she can get me out. Right?
Right.
So we send this lady $10,000, and she tells me that she meets with the people she has to meet with, and it's not $10,000. It's another 30. And my father's frustrated. I'm frustrated. My mother's frustrated. We don't have another 30.
Right.
That's not happening.
Yeah, and it's a scam anyway.
And it's a fucking scam anyway. So we say, take the 10 that you have. You already have it. And let me know what you can do with that. So she comes back and she says, well, for the 10, we'll get you a deal where you can get out of jail, but you have to stay in the country and finish out a year. And then you'll have to sign. You can go back to your country, and you have to come back once a month or once every 2 months to sign, kind of like a probation type of thing. So I said, if that's the way it has to be, that's the way it has to be. I mean, that's where we are. So meanwhile, the Fifth Avenue lawyer is representing me, and I have the other lawyer kind of on deck. I'm talking to him. We're friends at this point. I think I sent him like $1,000, just so he could kind of counsel me almost through this whole thing. So we get to court, and the Fifth Avenue lawyer is putting together this whole fucking dog and pony show strategy, and tells me that he wants to postpone it another month so he could build his case more. So I'm close to a year now. I mean, I'm getting up there, and I don't like him to begin with.
Right.
So I tell him to go fuck himself, and I hire the other lawyer,
The kid.
And my next court date is not only the date that the lady is supposed to get me the deal, but it's also the date where they determine whether or not I'm going to trial. Right?
Okay.
So it's a pretrial date. And I'm a year in. I'm a year into this thing. And we go to the court, and it's February. And I figure I'm getting out. I'm approaching. I'm approaching. Worst case scenario is I got a year, or so I'm going to get out very soon, and we'll see what happens. So we get to court, and the kid's representing me, and he argues, but I think I have the deal in the bag because I got the lady standing right behind me, and we're good. And the judge says we're going to trial. But doesn't set a date for trial because that's not how it works in DR. You have to wait for a date for trial. We're going to trial. I look at the lady. What the fuck happened? They didn't want to do anything because you didn't give them extra money, this and the other.
Okay.
Right. So now the whole scam's forward. I tell her to go fuck herself, and now I got the kid. But do I want the kid representing me at trial? Because now it's getting really, really apparent to me that I'm facing 20 years in prison. That's what I'm facing. I'm charged with narcotics trafficking
For
a few vape pens. But it's not classified. It's not classified as that. I'm in the same category with people who are shipping cocaine powder from Colombia to DR. That's that's how I'm classified. So now I got to figure out what the hell's going on. But we find this translator who translated for me at this date, and we became friendly with him. He was a really nice guy. He did a lot of government work. And he said through a relationship of his, he knew this really famous criminal attorney. But I can afford a really famous criminal attorney because I'm over 150 into this, 180 into this. There's no more money. The well is dry, you know? Right. And my mother's a very emotional Italian woman, you know? My mother calls up the guy and gets on a phone call with him. And his daughter speaks English, so she's translating and cries to him and he says, I'll take the case pro bono. Just give me like $1,000 to $2,000 to get all the shit, you know, like everything I need to do. Just give me $2,000. I'll walk you through the whole case. I'll figure this out. And like if you were to Google this guy's name, this guy's on TV. He's representing a very high profile. He does murder cases. This is his wheelhouse. Right. You know, this is what he's the Johnny Cochran of you know, you see this guy on TV. So I'm like, all right, cool. This guy's nice. He's going to help me get through it. He's going to even work with the young kid, and we're going to be good. So we start talking all this nonsense. And meanwhile, this guy, I forget how it happened, but this guy comes into the picture. His name was Jose, and he's a real used car salesman, like real used car salesman, scumbag type of guy. Right. And he starts pitching me another backdoor way to get out of this whole thing. But his pitch was, it's $30,000. You will get out. You will leave the country immediately. You will have to come back every 2 months, sign for 4 years. That's what it is. I met with the judge. Here's what it is. The judge is this. He knew the judge's names. He knew the prosecutor's names. He had access. He had more information than normal people would, you know? So I said, now that we got the famous lawyer, yeah, but that's not definite because he's straight. He's a straight arrow. He's going to represent me in court the Johnny Cochran way, but this guy is giving me an out. Mm-hmm. Let's come up with the $30,000. Yeah. So at this point, while this is all happening, there's a lot of violence in the jail. My phone's getting stolen. I'm getting extorted for money on a daily basis. But the one thing that the embassy did, right, was be the embassy. Now I'll explain that. So the embassy didn't do nothing. They didn't help me in any way, but they let off the impression to the jail and the guards and the inmates even that I was the American that was not to be touched. Right. So I could be extorted and I could be robbed, but as far as physical violence is concerned, I'm off limits. You know, that's kind of how the whole thing was.
I could be extorted.
Right.
Be stolen from.
Right. But don't touch the American. Right. So now there's all sorts of violent people are getting murdered on a weekly basis here. I'll give you a story. There was one guy and he was doing 20. So he was doing 20 and we had these fans because the windows were open. It was 100 fucking degrees there, you know? Right. And the only thing you had was really a fan, and only some rooms had the fan. So he had a fan and he had to get money from his cellmates, whatever it may be, to pay for the fan. So, and we're not talking about $1 million. We're talking about 2,000 pesos, which is $30, you know? Right. So they didn't pay him or whatever it may be. And they were jerking him around. And he formulates this plan where he's going to kill him. He's going to kill one of these guys. So he takes his machete. And one night after they close the gates at 10:30, everybody's in lockdown. They're in like another building, you know, where they sleep, the guards. And he pokes one of his cellmates to death. And then
because
Perfectly reasonable.
well, I mean, I would. And then the other cellmate tries to stop it, and he's poked him too. You know, they took 25 minutes to get to the cell to get this guy out of the cell with 2 bodies on his floor. I mean, that's kind of how it works.
That's a reaction time.
That's a reaction time. But if they hear that there's a phone in the room, they're there at 30 seconds, you know? So that's kind of what was going on a semi-weekly basis. And I'm scared shit. Like, I knew that I was kind of safe, but at the same time, I mean, these people, I'm sharing rooms with these people.
I was going to say, these are not exactly rule followers.
Right, exactly.
So they've been warned, but yeah.
Right, it didn't matter.
Does
right.
that really matter?
Right. So now I have, you know, in the legal point of now, I have my straight-laced Johnny Cochran attorney, right, who's helping me. I have the kid who's kind of consoling me. And I have this guy, Jose, who just came in the picture, who's telling me for 30 grand, he got the deal. And he's showing me proof that he has, that he has a deal. So I contact a few of my friends, and I contact this guy, and he was a buyer of mine. So he didn't have anything in the pallet, but he was a buyer of mine. He owns a distro, and he was a really, really great Indian guy and really great person, you know? And I got on the phone with him, and I cried to him, and I told him what was the deal. And my mother talks to him, and she cried. My mother's an Italian, she cries about everything. And she's crying to him, and he was like, I'll help you. So he gives me the $30,000. I'm getting out of jail. We just need to, yeah, I know. So I'm approaching $200,000 with this. That's just illegal. That's not the $200 that I'm going through every week in the commissary and with buying people drugs and doing the whole thing. So I'm over 200 into this, plus my mother's expenses of coming and doing the whole thing. So I get the 30. They tell me that they finally get me a court date for July 1st. So now I'm over a year.
Right.
June 22nd, I get arrested. July 1st of the next year is my court date. So it's my trial. I'm going to trial. This is going to end. Now, I'm scared because I'm facing 20 years and I don't know if this guy's full of shit. But there is a sense of relief, I guess you could call it, because during this whole time, I'm living in limbo. I don't know what's going on. I'm facing 20 years. You know, I don't know what's going on.
Right.
You know? So my court date's finally approaching, and we get to trial. Well, now, in the Dominican Republic, there's no jury. There's 3 judges. So there's 1 guy and 2 women, right? And I'm thinking that I got the 2 women because I'm emotional. My mother's there. She has cancer. I got the emotional aspect of this, you know? And the guy, even if it's 2 against 1 with the women, I'm good. I'm okay. I'm going to get at least something decent, right?
Right.
So the prosecution calls 4 witnesses. They call 2 people that arrest me. They call a handler that handled the dog, the drug-sniffing dog, and they call someone else. I forget who it was. But all four, they call the guy, the shipping company, the guy who owned the shipping company. All 4 witnesses testify to my story and basically say he didn't know what was going on.
Right.
He was completely caught off guard. He was hysterical when we arrested him. Even the dog handler said at the airport that intercepted the pallet basically said, yeah, we found the drugs, or we found the cannabis, but it was labeled in boxes like it was being sold at a store. They wasn't hiding it. You know,
Right,
this was
right.
this was not in Ziploc bags. This was being used for a meeting or something like that. So everybody testifies to me, and even the prosecutor basically makes his closing statements and says, look, please, the court
show mercy on him, give him whatever minimum it is, because he's not a drug trafficker. You know, like he gets it, you know? Now, did that come from the crooked lawyer Jose? Did that come from the president? Where did that come from? You know, nobody knows. Or was it just genuine that they had compassion for the situation? So I didn't know, you know? So they, you know, we all argue and everything's okay. And it was spread over 2 days because trials there, they're not like trials here where, you know, it's actually organized.
Right.
Trials there are 20 minutes. The whole thing, front to back, that's what it is, you know? So, so we return after a day and we're wrapping things up and they go into chambers and they're talking. I'm sitting there with my mother and I'm sitting there with my lawyer and I'm sitting there with the translator. And the translator kind of knows the situation because he's represented me a couple times. And I'm looking at him like, what do you think? You know? And he was like, I'm pretty sure it's good, but I don't know. Now, I had to plead guilty because I thought I was getting a deal, right? So I pled guilty, right? I pled guilty. I said, yes, I did this, but unintentionally type of thing.
Right.
So I don't know if they're going to give me the probation deal. I don't know if they're going to give me 20 years. I don't know. It was the longest 15 minutes of my life that they're in chambers. So they come out and the guy starts talking and he says, I wanted to let you go today, but they don't. And points
The two women?
The two women, right. They don't want to let you go. So I was like, oh, fuck. You know, what not now? So he makes this spiel and they all basically say the same thing, that we understand that you're a businessman, this is your business, and you didn't mean to do it, but you still did something really wrong. And that's what they say, right? I was like, I even got up and said, I understand I did something wrong, but look at it even logically. I say to them, I'm in jail and I see all this. And I say, if I was in jail, I could buy an ounce of grass for 2,000 pesos, which is about $30. In America, an ounce of grass is $200. So I would either have to be the stupidest drug trafficker in the world, or I didn't do anything malicious out of malice, you know? So they start talking, they say the same thing, and they say, we're not going to give you a deal. We're not going to give you a probation deal because you're American. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you 18 months and then you could leave the country. So now I'm already a year in. So
Do you get good time? Is there a good time?
I
situation?
thought there was. That story's coming along. So I'm looking at it as my lawyer sitting there and telling me we'll get you out earlier, but you know, worst case scenario is 18 months. I got 5.5 months left. I'm not doing 20 years.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like, you know, I'm okay.
Yeah, you can survive. Survived a year. I can survive 6 more months, maybe.
Right.
It's not the end of the world.
Now, what I didn't tell you before was I have 2 kids. I have a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old. Now, I'm very close to my kids. I share custody with my ex-wife, my first wife, and we're very close. Now, my 16-year-old's very high-strung and very anxious. He's a very anxious kid. So when this whole thing happened, he was so anxious, they took him out of school and started doing online school because he didn't know what was going on either. And I'm feeding him, telling him, and I'm very honest with my kids, and I'm telling him, well, I got this lawyer and this lawyer's putting together deals. And he's at this point, but he's a very intelligent kid. And he's like, number one, Santana's not dead. He's full of shit. He stole your money. And I don't know who to believe at this point. So like he kind of gathered to himself that he doesn't know when dad's coming home, you know? And my 12-year-old thinks I have a problem with my passport. so I'm stuck in Dominican Republic waiting in a resort, As a matter of fact, one of the things that I would always tell my kids, I need to speak to you twice a day. I need to speak to you in the morning when you wake up or around when you wake up and before you go to sleep.
If you sleep hot at night, you know how disruptive that can be. Whether you're having trouble falling asleep, you're waking up sweating in the middle of the night, or all of the above. That's where GhostBed can help. As the makers of the coolest beds in the world, GhostBed is your go-to for cooling mattresses, cooling pillows, and cooling bedding. From their signature Ghost Ice fabric to patented technology that adjusts to your body's temperature, every Ghost Bed mattress is designed with cooling in mind. So whether you want a plusher mattress that cushions your shoulders and hips, or a firm option with exceptional support, your Ghost Bed will keep you cool and comfortable all night long. When you purchase a Ghost Bed mattress, your comfort is guaranteed. You can try out your mattress for 101 nights, risk-free, to make sure it's the right fit for you. Plus, they offer free shipping, and most items are shipped within 24 hours. If you're not sure which Ghost Bed is right for you, check out their mattress quiz. You'll answer a few questions and get a personalized recommendation. Even better, our listeners can get 50% off site-wide for a limited time. Just visit ghostbed.com/Cox and use the code COX at checkout. Again, that's ghostbed.com/Cox with the code COX at the checkout to save a whopping 50% off site-wide.
So one day, I'll make you laugh. My son calls me very late in the day. I can't get through to him. He calls me very late. My 12-year-old calls me very late in the day. And I said, what's going on with you? Why didn't you call me? Because Dad, I was a little busy and this, that, and I said, Scotty, I get really anxious. He doesn't know I'm jail, but he knows I'm anxious because I want to speak to them. He said, Dad, I don't know why you're anxious. I'm safe. I'm with Mom. Why don't you go in the hot tub? Why don't you go in the pool? I'm sitting here. So, long story short, where I get 18 months, and my friend and my lawyer's telling me we'll get you out soon, and we'll get sort of time. We'll get, we'll get, even if you have to stay in the country, at least you won't be in that hellhole. So I'm thinking my max downside is I have to stay in the country to finish out the 18 months, and then I could go home. That's max downside. But upside is I get to go home right away. And even if worst possible case scenario is I have to fill the 18 months, I'm 2/3 there. I'm there. I'm right there. So I go back and I'm in kind of a better mood. And I told my kids that I would be home in a couple months, and I told my ex-wife, and I'm kind of in a better mood because after a year I know how to live here, or at least survive, but I also know there's a date I'm going home. So as time goes on, I'm bugging my lawyer, and it gets back to me that I became friends with this guy in the office who handles all the releases and everything like that. And he's actually going to school to be a lawyer. And he always helped me. And he tells me, Mike, you're not getting out early. By the time you get a court date for early release, you're going to be gone. Because that's the way the system works. It's fucked up. So now I'm facing the reality that I'm going to be there for the next 5 months.
Hey, you guys, I appreciate you watching. We're going to put Chris's link in the description box. His channel is called 9/10. And we're going to put the link in. You can hit the link, go to his channel, subscribe. Once again, I really appreciate you guys watching the video. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified of videos like this. Share the video, and please consider joining our Patreon. It's $10 a month, and it really does help Colby and I make these videos. Thank you very much. See ya.